Chapter 523. The higher-ups of the Honorable Martial Alliance were also divided because of this matter. Maybe you are already dead, maybe you are still alive, but I can die contentedly. The oath that I made that year, although only I heard it, but I have never thought of giving up. Having just received the image of the Red Leaf Army, the Honorable Martial Alliance were extremely excited and were preparing to make a statement. To say that for the sake of investigating the Battle of Ancient Cold City, the Honorable Martial Alliance would send the Red Leaf Army to Ancient Cold City and tell everyone the truth. But they never thought that before they could even make a statement, Sexton's constellation would become Ursa Major constellations. After the intense argument, the second opinion finally prevailed. The Honorable Martial Alliance's long rule over Heaven's Road had formed their pride, and had long penetrated deep into the clan elders' bone marrow. A rising star like Ursa Major constellation, in their eyes, was just a newly rich family that had just entered the city from the countryside. The entire Sexton's constellation's star power became unprecedentedly lively. Everyone in Sexton's constellation ran out of their houses, their faces filled with shock as they looked at the night sky that suddenly descended and the stars that filled the sky. The adjutant nodded his head. He could only do that. The golden Sexton's eye floated in the light pillar, like a golden snowflake. The 6 eyes released a dazzling light aura. The blurred eyes surfaced the figure that was as profound as the wind, the person that saved him, the person that gave him hope to live. He was truly happy. Song Yongyu floated upwards. Now, there is only one thing left. In that moment, he was filled with emotions. Furthermore, if at this time, the Honorable Martial Alliance were to display a weak state, not only would it cause their own allies to lose confidence, it would also cause the hidden enemies to become restless. Very quickly, the Honorable Martial Elders came to an agreement. The me that was unknown in the past, the me that was trapped in a desperate situation, the me that was cowardly, the me that was already past middle age but was useless, the me that even looked down on myself. The surging star power instantly surged into Sexton's constellation, and the Martial House Masters who originally had doubts about joining Ursa Major constellation were immediately surprised and happy. They were happy because the dense energy showed that Ursa Major constellation's strength was much stronger than what they had imagined. What surprised them was that Tang Tian of the Ursa Major constellation was known for his scheming, tyrannical and strong personality, and was definitely not an easy-to-deal-with constellation master. He wiped his tears and gently pointed at Sexton's eye in the light pillar, causing it to slowly float out and land in his hands. Song Yongyu passed Sexton's eye to Tang Tian. I'll hand it over to you, my mission is complete. Song Yongyu looked at the Sexton's eye inside the light pillar in a daze, and repeated with a trembling voice, I said I can definitely do it, I said I can definitely do it. He flew to the side of the light pillar. This light pillar was released by Sexton's constellation's Saint Treasure, Celestial Sextant. The Celestial Sextant had been in his hands for many years, but he had never revealed it to the outside world. The Honorable Martial Alliance wanted to use a strong victory to declare that they were the true rulers of Heaven's Road. Song Yongyu's face revealed a smile. He was suddenly filled with anticipation. Back then, he didn't have the right to say this, but now, he could finally say it without any guilt. Jones hesitated for a moment. Continue forward, we will advance while waiting for orders from above. Even though they were far away, everyone could clearly feel that at the position of the light pillar, the surging energy undulation was gathering like a storm. Ursa Major constellation was immediately in a precarious situation. Using 4 gold rank armies at the same time, with 10 saints accompanying them, the Honorable Martial Alliance's move caused the entire Heaven's Road to be silent. But in this period of time, because of Fu Ying's disturbance, the front lines had suffered many losses, and for the sake of stabilizing the situation, the experts of the Honorable Martial Alliance were all sent to the front lines. If they were to start a war with Ursa Major constellation at this time, it would not be an easy matter. This sudden change caused Jones' Red Leaf Army to be dumbstruck. Song Yongyu smiled. He was relieved of a heavy burden. For the past few years, all of his life, all of his efforts, were all on this, and now he had completed all of his vows and felt an indescribable sense of relief. They did not know that the Honorable Martial Alliance was currently in a mess. But, now that Sexton's constellation had become a part of Ursa Major constellation, the Honorable Martial Alliance felt that it was difficult. Compared to Sexton's constellation, Ursa Major constellation was not to be trifled with. Tang Tian was difficult to deal with, the Honorable Martial Alliance had experienced it firsthand, and the group of people from Ursa Major constellation were a group of battle maniacs. And another group of Honorable Martial Elders felt that the disturbance of Fu Ying had affected the Honorable Martial Alliance too much, and if this matter was not resolved, it would affect the Honorable Martial Alliance for a long time. And although the front lines were somewhat tense, but they had already stabilized the situation, as long as they adopted a defensive stance, Leo constellation would definitely not succeed so easily. Compared to the Honorable Martial Alliance, Ursa Major constellation was at its weakest. The main armies were all tied up in Big Dipper, and only one mechanical army was outside. Tang Tian's voice sounded out in every corner of Ursa Major constellation and Sexton's constellation at the same time. It was time to change all of this. He suddenly thought, if these people knew that their own boss had been changed to such a powerful and tyrannical king, how would they feel? When the higher-ups of the Honorable Martial Alliance received the image, they were all shocked. Such power was definitely not something an ordinary treasure deposit could possess. The ray of light entered Ursa Major constellation, only to see that Sexton's constellation in the sky had disappeared, and Ursa Major constellation had an additional piece. And at the same time, there were 10 other saints that came out to battle. At that moment, the Light Blade Army, Raging Inferno Army, Dawn Army, the 3 Gold Grade armies, all came out from their respective encampments. The Light Blade Army would reinforce the Red Leaf Army, while the Raging Inferno Army and the Dawn Army would directly attack Ursa Major constellation. In the sky, Ursa Major constellation suddenly blossomed with light auras. Tang Tian felt an indescribable excitement surging in his heart. He composed himself and spoke out slowly. "What do we do?" The adjutant looked at Jones. Bang! The gold light pillar in the distance shot straight into the clouds. "If you were here, you would definitely laugh at me for not having any ambition, because I was originally very ordinary." He was the true ruler of Sexton's constellation, but he was naturally low profile, and under his secret push, Sexton's constellation had become a neutral constellation with fighting grounds as its main focus. Adding that the battle in ancient Cold City was so intense, although Ursa Major constellation had succeeded, but Ursa Major constellation's losses would definitely be extremely huge. In other words, ancient Cold City was extremely weak. Tang Tian solemnly received Sexton's eye. He could feel that Song Yangyu valued Sexton's eye, and the feelings he had for it. A portion of the Honorable Martial Elders felt that, at such a crucial time, to place their energy on the Fu Ying disturbance and start a war with Ursa Major constellation was definitely not a wise move, and could possibly cause the Honorable Martial Alliance to be attacked from both front and back. My king above! Sexton's eye, what exactly was inside? Receiving the order, the morale of the Red Leaf Army soared. They increased their speed and advanced towards ancient Cold City. The higher-ups gave them the authority to attack at any time. Song Yangyu raised his head and looked at the sky. "Because I did it, I did what you wanted me to be, and did not disappoint your trust." The vigorous voice was like rolling thunder. At the same time, it swept across the entire sky of Sexton's constellation. Inside ancient Cold City. So it was Ursa Major constellation playing tricks in the dark. Jones's eyes became gloomy, killing intent flashing past. The adjutant's exclamation entered his ears, and Jones also revealed a look of shock. The Red Leaf Army stopped, exclamations sounded out. They looked at the light pillar that shot straight into the sky in shock. That is... The light pillar transformed into a ray of light, flying towards Ursa Major constellation in the sky. The Red Leaf Army immediately received praise from the higher-ups, and was ordered to immediately move towards ancient Cold City. The light pillar started to change, becoming even more turbulent. The sky also became darker, and in the sky, stars appeared. I, Song Yangyu, hereby announce, Sexton's constellation will merge with Ursa Major constellation. As he spoke, Tears flowed down his face. Rather than that, why not take the opportunity to strangle it in the cradle? 2 hours later, the Honorable Martial Alliance released a stern statement, directly pointing out that Ursa Major Constellation was the true mastermind behind the Fuing disturbance, and requested for Ursa Major Constellation to unconditionally accept the Honorable Martial Alliance's investigation. If not, it would be seen as Ursa Major Constellation's provocation and declaration of war against the Honorable Martial Alliance. And Ursa Major Constellation's aggressive development had long made the Honorable Martial Alliance feel threatened. Ursa Major Constellation and the Honorable Martial Alliance's relationship had always been hostile. If they were to grow, they would definitely become a huge problem for the Honorable Martial Alliance. But for the Saint Treasure of Sexton's constellation to be in Song Yang Yu's hands, the entire Sexton's constellation did not find it strange. Song Yang Fighting Grounds had been the true controller of Sexton's constellation for a long time. I, Tang Tian, the master of Ursa Major Constellation, welcome Sexton's constellation. From today onwards, we will never leave or forsake each other. The adjutant quivered, his face filled with ecstasy. Jones was right, although up till now, they had not found any evidence, but just the light pillar in front of them was enough to attract the attention of the higher-ups. That is ancient Cold City. Jones was the first to react. The shock on his face turned into ecstasy. Quick, send this video back to the honorable group. There must be something amazing there. We made the right bet. What you entrusted, what you requested, what you said, what you ridiculed, what you joked about, I did it all. This time, they immediately felt that they were in a dilemma. If it was another time, the Honorable Martial Alliance would not have such restraining fear. Fu Ying's disturbance was truly terrible, and they knew that it was most likely Ursa Major Constellation playing tricks in the dark. If it was just Sexton's constellation, they could investigate if they wanted, they could directly send troops, although there would be disputes, but as long as they were able to take out something that could be explained to everyone, they could do whatever they wanted. The entire Heavens Road was shocked by the Honorable Martial Alliance's killing intent announcement. Everyone could feel the determination of the Honorable Martial Alliance from the announcement. Following that, the Honorable Martial Alliance announced that the Red Leaf Army had already headed to ancient Cold City to investigate the matter. To lower their head to such a nouveau riche, the Honorable Martial Elder found it hard to accept. Song Yang Yu flew to the sky above ancient Cold City. Looking at the messy ancient Cold City, he sighed. He had built ancient Cold City for Sexton's Eye. He had long expected that Sexton's Eye would meet with trouble, so he had spent a lot of effort on ancient Cold City, but he did not expect that ancient Cold City would almost be destroyed. Chapter 524. Suddenly, a black dot appeared in front of them. It was their own scout, but Zheng Yu was skinny and did not stand out. He was a saint who was passionate about treasure hunting and had extremely deep attainments in eye-related spirit techniques. The army was such a big target, the energy undulation in the air allowed him to easily lock onto the enemy's position. Unfortunately, the disparity in absolute strength was not something that tactics could make up for. Different colored spirit techniques simultaneously landed on every corner of the maple leaf. They touched it and then left. This creative idea immediately won everyone's applause. The general's willpower infected the surrounding soldiers. The long period of training formed an instinct, almost made them roar at the same time, kill. Just wait to move out. Through the military general's control, the entire army was integrated into one. It could be said that there were no blind spots. Regardless of which spot was attacked, the entire army's energy would naturally converge towards the place that was attacked. At the same time blocking the attack, they would also counterattack. Everyone became excited. Today's achievement was all because of Master Fu Ying's guidance. Under Tang Tian's command, 43 men rushed forward. Tang Tian's command came out in the air. Everyone immediately understood Tang Tian's intention. With so many points of attack, it would result in an all-out counterattack. After everyone heard Tang Tian's idea, they all laughed out loud, although they felt that Tang Tian was a bit of a prankster, but they still released their energy barriers and adjusted it to a conical shape. Jones's heart jumped. A bad premonition was born. Just at that moment, A light aura lit up in the distance. Saints naturally had some eyesight. The Red Leaf army below was currently one. It was an extremely powerful tactic. The entire Red Leaf army's energy undulation was completely synchronized. Below was like a fiery red magma, containing an astonishing amount of energy. The speed of the flames was extremely fast. They did not even hear any sound. In the blink of an eye, the flames had rushed close. Jones then saw clearly there was actually a group of people inside the flames. His voice in the surging torrent of vibrations was like a leaf swaying in the wind and rain. It was extremely weak, but when it landed in the ears of the soldiers who were at a loss, it was the last straw to clutch at. His attack missed. Jones was not discouraged. He roared, "Red Leaf!" The light aura was extremely fast. Before the scout had even landed on the ground, the light aura had already arrived. Jones's pupils constricted, that is. The attacks, which were as dense as light pillars, missed. Not only the honorable martial alliance, the others did not expect that the saints of ancient Cold City did not sacrifice much and were all under Tang Tian's command. The saint. Jones' mind went blank. The surging rain of light erupted with a loud bang. He suddenly quivered and yelled at the top of his lungs, "Enemy attack!" The light around Jones had reached a terrifying level, like an ocean of light. He raised his arm high, like the determination of Jones, and slashed it down towards the saints who were whistling towards him. Will the children be scared to tears? The saints in the sky were no longer joking around. If they had been hit by that dense energy just now, even someone as strong as a saint would have been turned into ashes. Even Lida, who was most proficient in energy barriers, had a slight change in expression. Even if he used all his strength to support the energy barrier, he would not be able to survive such a terrifying attack. However, it was nothing before 42 saints. If it was an ordinary martial artist, the attack would be sharp, but the saints could easily escape and dodge. The entire Red Leaf army suddenly lit up with light auras. The light auras converged towards Jones at an astonishing speed. The Red Leaf army was advancing quickly. They were already very close to ancient Cold City. Victory was right in front of them, and everyone firmly believed in it. What would be left of an ancient Cold City that was ravaged by Fu Ying? Fu Ying's final counterattack was enough to raze ancient Cold City to the ground. Then we will use our lives to repay Master Fu Ying's kindness. Like a group of meteorites descending from the sky, they dragged a long tail of fire, bringing with them the power to destroy the heavens and earth. None of the soldiers could maintain their calm. All of their faces were as white as paper, their legs trembling. The opponents started to dive down. Bang! The Honorable Martial Alliance, who did not know what was happening, released a statement filled with killing intent, causing the saints of ancient Cold City to burst out laughing. Currently, everyone and Honorable Martial Group no longer had any leeway to turn things around. Both sides would not rest until one side was dead. The Red Leaf Army and the Light Blade Army, in everyone's eyes, were two fragrant meat buns with thin skin and big fillings. Charge! Everyone's reply was messy. Compared to the army's uniformity, it was much weaker. But Tang Tian did not mind. In front of him, there were a total of 42 saints. The terrifying whistling sound came late. It was a torrent of sound that caused everyone's body to tremble. 43 saints released their own attack spirit techniques at the same time. Inside the flames, there were indistinctly human figures. Densely packed light beams, like raindrops, shot into the sky randomly, like a pile of fireworks being ignited. Jones's face completely changed. The maple leaf formation was invulnerable. Upon receiving the enemy's attack, they would immediately counterattack. This was originally an advantage, but at the moment, it had become a fatal flaw. What is that? Tang Tian felt that it was a good idea. If everyone were to do it together, it would definitely be a spectacular sight. Tang Tian randomly gave out commands, and finally managed to form the most basic attack formation. If Bing was here, he would definitely snort in disdain. This attack formation was truly ugly. No, this was because every single one of them had their entire bodies wrapped in blazing flames. Everyone's morale was high, everyone's faces were full of smiles. With regards to the battle that was about to begin, they were not the least bit worried. 42 saints. Even if they were independent saints with average strength, it was still a terrifying force. The Honorable Martial Alliance did not have a clear understanding of the Battle of Ancient Cold City, and Tang Tian and the rest's recording was only of Fu Ying's threat before the battle. To the Honorable Martial Alliance, all the saints had definitely become cannon fodder and were destroyed. Jones raised his arms and roared. At that moment, he had already forgotten about fear. His heart was only filled with killing intent. Everyone responded loudly. 43 figures flew up into the sky and flew towards the northwest direction. Tang Tian's order was straightforward. To the Bronze Saints, what they could use was still their own true power. This meant that their attacks definitely had a limit. Although spirit techniques were more efficient than martial techniques and had greater power, but it was not limitless. Ready. Kill. In truth, the Red Leaf Army and the Light Blade Army's strength were extremely outstanding. After all, they were built with the Gold Branch as the backbone. Compared to ordinary armies, their quality was not just a little bit stronger. 43 figures were like flower petals that opened up in the sky, dragging a blazing fire tail, suddenly flying towards different directions of the Red Leaf Army. They were like a flock of nimble birds, fighting for the maple leaf at the same time. A saint called Zheng Yu suddenly said excitedly, "I found them, they are over there." Jones's face changed. Tang Tian did not care, he was excited. The scout's figure was in a sorry state. The expression on his face seemed to be fear. His heart calmed down. Prepare to attack. The opponent did not fall for it. At that moment, there was no time for him to change. The sharp whistling, the scalp-numbing trembling sound, once again converged into a torrent, suppressing them from all directions. Scatter and attack. Be careful to break away. In just one move, all the energy of the army was depleted by a third. Is everyone ready? A perfect formation. So many saints. The momentum before the battle was very important. Everyone increased their speed at the same time. As expected of a saint. Jones's voice completely changed. It was mournful and filled with fear, immediately pulling the stunned soldiers back to their senses. Everyone looked at the sky in fear. The enemies, wrapped in flames, were closing in on them at an astonishing speed. Everyone in the Red Leaf Army were all excited. Tang Tian shouted at the top of his lungs. The young man was eager to fight. A very powerful military leader. Line up, line up. Later, everyone must maintain the same speed. Don't go too fast, don't go too slow. As long as they were the first to occupy ancient Cold City, this merit was enough for them to soar. In the entire Red Leaf Army, the only one who still maintained a trace of calmness was Jones. He knew that the chances of survival were extremely slim. It was a true desperate situation. But after experiencing the initial fear, his eyes were bloodshot. His heart was completely determined. Jones exclaimed in his heart, the strength of a saint was truly much stronger than a normal gold-ranked martial artist. To be able to freely control the direction while diving at such a high speed, only a saint could do that. The maple leaf formation suddenly surged with densely packed light spots. Every light spot surrounding energy suddenly exploded. The soldiers' bodies all lit up with red light auras. Looking down from the sky, the army below was surging with red light, like a red maple leaf. The dazzling light beams, connected between the soldiers, looked like the veins of the maple leaf. A sharp whistling sound came from the sky. Everyone who was relaxed started to play all sorts of tricks, spiraling forward, afterimages in the air, flickering lights and passing shadows. The most powerful was a fellow called Li De. His most proficient spirit technique was the energy barrier. He adjusted his own energy barrier into a sharp conical shape, then crazily accelerated. The friction between the energy barrier and the air produced a dazzling flame, only to see him dragging a long fire tail. The momentum was extremely spectacular. Tang Tian waved his hand. Move out. Scatter. The big fire in the sky suddenly split into pieces, like exploding fireworks. It transformed into 43 rays of flames, drawing 43 arcs in the sky. Tang Tian was also surprised. The opponent's tactic was truly powerful. His intuition was extremely astonishing. The energy undulation below contained an extremely intense danger. Tang Tian, who was diving at high speed, did not have the slightest bit of his usual playfulness. His eyes were cold. The opponent's commander's calmness did not make him too surprised. To him, it was a normal reaction. Because any army under his command would not lose their will to resist just because the enemy was too strong. How is that possible? Wait, line up neatly. Meng Ta, pull back a little. Chapter 525. 43 saints sealed off the Sea of Clouds, and every martial artist that rushed out of the Sea of Clouds would be killed. The shrill screams that were constantly approaching from above made everyone feel as if the Grim Reaper was rushing towards them. Everyone felt that the master was being overly cautious. With so many saints against an army, wouldn't it be easy? Furthermore, with so many saints, it was already bullying enough for them to fight against an army, but master did not even give them any face, and even used such underhanded methods. His gaze became more and more unfocused. He closed his eyes helplessly. He did not want to see the massacre that was about to happen. Jones closed his eyes in despair. He knew it was over. He didn't expect that the Sea of Clouds would make them collapse. Fresh blood spurted out from his mouth, soaking the front of his clothes. He had suffered the heaviest impact from those spirit techniques just now. The military general was the hub to organize and gather true power. At the same time, when an attack arrived, the power would be the first to reach him. If the formation was maintained and they were united as a fortress, the impact could be dispersed layer by layer, and the entire army could withstand the impact, and no one would be injured. Tang Tian already had an idea. He chuckled and said, "We'll charge down like we did just now." But this time, they threw a Sea of Clouds first, and then everyone threw their spirit techniques down. Explosion-type spirit techniques were the best. Once you're done, pull it up immediately. As expected of a gold-grade army, 43 people floated in the air, looking at Tang Tian. Although the battle had just begun, Tang Tian's performance had already won everyone's trust. Be careful. Before he finished speaking, the white mist came very quickly. In the blink of an eye, everything in front of him was a vast expanse of whiteness. White mist surrounded him and did not disperse. Tang Tian didn't expect the others to have so many thoughts. Of course, even if he knew, he wouldn't care. Until just now, when the 43 saints dove down at the same time, attacked at the same time, and then quickly pulled up, this strange tactic caused Jones to smell danger. Some of the more powerful saints were deep in thought. It seems that Sir is most concerned with practical benefits, not with false reputation, not with extravagance, and only with practicality. He knew that his thoughts were preposterous, although he was the commanding general, but he had never truly controlled the army. Although the gold branch allowed the quality of the soldiers to be outstanding, it also caused the army to not truly trust their commander. If only he was stricter with the training of the army, Cloud Sea. The others looked at each other in dismay. A few of them wanted to say something but stopped themselves. It was unlike any battle they had experienced before. When the war appeared in front of everyone, even the saints who were used to seeing life and death were shocked by the brutality of the war. So saints aren't as terrifying as I thought. Many of the soldiers thought so, and some of the stronger gold-ranked martial artists were eager to try. This was war. The rest of them looked down on Meng Ta. They had heard that Meng Ta was a tough man, but they did not expect him to be such a shameless bootlicker. To lead such an army, it is truly lamentable. That was only because they were forced by the situation. Most of them felt the same way. Because of this, they didn't have much faith in Tang Tian. Tang Tian wasn't the strongest among them, because he realized that he could not deal with such a tactic. All the saints pulled themselves up and shot up into the sky like a rocket. Boom, boom, boom. When a person's connection with his surroundings was cut off, most people would subconsciously panic. This was an instinct that could only be overcome through strict training. The newly formed Red Leaf Army was obviously unable to achieve such a test. Within the Cloud Sea, it became an Azura field. During the battle, it was also when Tang Tian was the coldest. Many of them even felt that Tang Tian was a little kid with extremely good luck. He was so young, so young that it was hard for people to believe that he relied on his own strength to build up the strong foundation of Ursa Major constellation. The Red Leaf Army was immediately in chaos. The chaos immediately caused the dome shield to fluctuate violently. This young man is not simple. Speed, height, these were the most direct advantages of a saint. The advantage of being able to fly, Tang Tian used it thoroughly. He did not understand complicated tactics, but his outstanding battle instincts allowed him to know how to use his advantages. Suddenly, a white mist floated past Jones's eyes, and he suddenly became alert. As time passed, the sounds in the cloud sea gradually stopped, and no one else rushed out. Tang Tian's voice broke the silence. Only he had a normal expression. He was the youngest out of all of them, but if you counted it, he had experienced more battles than any of them. The Red Leaf Army completely collapsed. Those soldiers who were in fear rushed out like crazy. And those gold-ranked martial artists were also panicking and running for their lives. And in the cloud sea, it was difficult to differentiate between friend and foe. Fear made everyone lose their rationality. Some people made a move because they were blocked, and it immediately caused a chaotic battle. During the battle, it was when Tang Tian's intelligence was at its highest. The saints immediately dispersed the cloud sea. There was no one left standing inside, and the ground was filled with corpses. The entire army, just like that, fell here. Blood flowed like a river, and the air was filled with the pungent smell of blood. It had to be said, the Red Leaf Army was much stronger than Tang Tian imagined. Originally, Tang Tian thought that the Red Leaf Army would collapse upon meeting them. He did not expect that the opponent was still stable. Although he was admiring them, Tang Tian did not have any intention of relaxing. He shouted, "Pull higher!" Until just now. 43 figures once again rushed down quickly. But those who were smart realized that they did not have any casualties. Even in the entire process of the battle, they did not meet with any danger at all. Master's idea is brilliant. Meng Ta praised. His expression was normal, and he quickly cleaned up the battlefield. The deafening explosion, a series of explosions, caused the dome shield that was already shaking violently to shatter. Jones was hit hard and spat out a mouthful of blood. Jones screamed, and before he could finish his sentence, the intense explosion exploded on the dome shield. But just now, the army was already in chaos, and the impact could not be dispersed, so he was the first to be heavily injured. Mournful screams once again enveloped the sky. Jones' judgment before he died was not wrong. The scene quickly became a massacre. The opponent's military leader was also very outstanding. Facing the attack of more than 40 saints, not only was he able to maintain his composure, he was also able to make the correct response. This was rather impressive. The cloud sea was now dyed with a faint blood-red color and looked abnormally terrifying and demonic. As long as they were obedient, it would be fine. If they were not obedient, then he would beat them until they were obedient. Tang Tian's way of thinking had always been simple. He did not care what these people were thinking, since they had already signed the contract to sell themselves. As a military leader, how could he not research on the high-level strategic force of the saints? From the looks of it, the entire Heaven's Road's usage of saints was still at a relatively low level. Of course, this was only the unspoken criticism in their hearts. No one dared to say it out loud. Thinking back to the battle, Tang Tian's command did not have any complicated or high-level tactics. Even the final result did not seem to be anything worth praising, as though it was supposed to be like that. "Are you ready?" Tang Tian shouted. After a while, he shouted, "Go, go, go." The opponent rushed down again. Jones was alert and waited. The opponent had learned from the previous lesson and rushed down from all directions. Jones laughed bitterly in his heart. Other than defending, he was unable to retaliate. The way everyone looked at Tang Tian was different from before. Dome shield. Even more explosive spirit techniques were thrown into the formation. Meng Ta had long noticed the disdain in everyone's eyes, and sneered in his heart, "Idiots. Wait till I get my refined spirit treasure. Let's see how tough you guys can be." This time he did not choose Red Leaf. Red Leaf was a formation that used defense as an attack. But against saints, red leaf, this attack was not effective. It would be a waste of the soldier's true power. Although Tang Tian was usually unreliable, but once he fought, he was like a different person, sharp, flexible, decisive, strong battle instincts. Anyone who was familiar with him would be amazed. Even Ling Su, who was a battle maniac, would sigh in admiration. Ling Su would lose his rationality in battle, but Tang Tian would not. Although the energy of the army had been depleted by a third, they were not defeated, which made the Red Leaf army heave a sigh of relief, and their confidence increased. Steady! Bang bang bang! Meng Ta and the rest did not have much joy of victory on their faces, only silence and shock. When everyone was shocked by the brutality of the war, Tang Tian remained indifferent to the point that he acted as though it was nothing out of the ordinary. They then realized, this young man who was too young was not as simple as they thought. Dome Shield was specially used to deal with attacks from the sky, although it did not have the ability to counterattack, but its defense was not weaker than Red Leaf, and more importantly, the consumption of true power was much lesser. Most of them were not convinced with Tang Tian. Even if it was Ursa Major constellation, it did not make them feel that they were too strong. If not for Fu Ying's humiliation and pressure, they would definitely not have chosen to rely on Ursa Major constellation. Jones's face was gloomy. He was not happy at all. On the contrary, the bad premonition in his heart was getting stronger. The strength of the saints was not enough to make him feel fear, but if the saints knew how to make use of their advantages, then it would not be good. What a pity! I was not able to take revenge for you. Every saint had stepped on fresh blood and fought through countless battles. None of them were merciful or merciful. Furthermore, they were very clear. This was a war. This war did not have the slightest bit of leeway. They then suddenly realized. On one hand, it was because of the long period of peace. On the other hand, it was because the position of the saints was too high. Military generals could not mobilize the saints. Even those saints who followed the army could only act as high-level bodyguards. Their position in the army was too high, and military generals could not order them around. Not good. Jones bellowed. The Red Leaf army suddenly lit up with light auras. A half-arc-shaped light barrier appeared on top of the Red Leaf army. The light barrier was like a gigantic glass dome, appearing on top of the Red Leaf army. The battle between the saints, in essence, was no different from a group fight. Everyone found their own opponents, and then killed each other. Clean up the battlefield. Chapter 526. Everyone jokingly called this wall the Wall of Life and Death. What exactly is inside ancient Cold City? Sean frowned, but this subordinate was usually calm. It was rare to see him in such a panic. He asked, "What happened? Why are you making such a big fuss?" Sean's face was ashen, his mind was blank. The vice president, who followed closely behind, was also stunned by the empty wall of life and death. His face turned white. Tang Tian waved his hand. This time he must make the honorable martial alliance feel pain. Although there were not many twists and turns in the battle, but unknowingly, the attitude of the saints towards Tang Tian had quietly changed. And following the birth of the Gold Rank army, the position of the Gold Branch was once again stabilized. Saints were definitely strong, but saints with high-level fighting strength were unable to become the main force of the battlefield. It could be foreseen that the rapid production of Gold Rank martial artists would become the main force of the battlefield. Although Tang Tian had never led an army before, but after mixing with Bing and the rest for a long time, under the influence of what he saw and heard, he could talk nonsense. These few professional words immediately made Meng Ta and the rest feel that the master's standard was not to be underestimated. Sean's lips trembled, his face full of fear as he looked at the empty wall of life and death. He was speechless. There was only one result in the scene in front of him: complete annihilation. Every honorable martial artist had an honorable martial plate, and the honorable martial artist of the army had an even higher level. It had many unknown functions. In the 10th Gold Branch, there was a wall. On it was a projection of every honorable martial artist of the Red Leaf army. If the martial artist died, the projection would disappear. Sean's mood was good. Recently their research also had new progress. Impossible! The one who spoke was Rongbo, his face congealed. There was a cold wave just now, in such a short period of time. It is impossible for a second cold wave to occur. Tang Tian waved his hand and said loudly, "If it was my army who dares to be so defeated, I will definitely beat them up like dogs." These words immediately caused everyone to be in awe. Beat them up all the way. These words sounded extremely domineering. Although it was hard for these produced gold rank martial artists to improve, and as compared to the naturally formed gold rank martial artists, they were much weaker. But in a short period of time, they could greatly strengthen the army. Absolutely impossible. But he did not know that the sudden destruction of the Red Leaf army would cause a huge uproar. How could this be? Xiaowen asked. How short? The gold branches had no choice but to make changes. They became a training camp for gold-ranked martial artists. The gold branch had a long history that could be traced back to the birth of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Each gold branch was very independent from each other. Every gold branch had their own secret technique. Shan was the president of the 10th gold branch. He had been in a good mood for the past 2 days. When the higher-ups decided to give up on the Red Leaf Army, his mood was extremely bad. The performance of the Red Leaf Army would directly affect the position of the 10th gold branch. Honorable Martial Alliance, 10th gold branch. Could it be a cold wave? A radiant elder asked in a low voice. They would select suitable youths from the various branches and let them use secret techniques to groom these martial artists into gold-ranked martial artists in the shortest time possible. Tang Tian immediately boasted proudly, "Actually, the Red Leaf Army's general standard is rather powerful. The martial artists are also very strong, but their training is too poor. The soldiers do not have enough trust in their generals. They are strong on the outside but weak on the inside. Their willpower is too weak, and this is very fatal. An army with weak willpower is easily defeated. I never thought that the Honorable Martial Alliance's army martial artists would actually have such weak willpower. Willpower is much more important than individual strength." How well done. Xiaowen revealed a satisfied look. When this batch of gold-ranked martial artists come out, we can build the 2nd and 3rd gold-rank armies. All the gold-rank armies will be thrown into the front lines, and before they die, they will earn enough merits for us. Leo Constellation can wait to be drowned by our gold-rank armies. The saint. Only a saint. And a large number of saints. No wonder Master is so skillful. Meng Ta did not miss the opportunity and cleverly clapped. It's not considered much. Tang Tian tilted his head and thought for a long time. He wanted to count with his fingers, but the exact numbers seemed to be a bit messed up, so he could only say, "Anyway, we just fought our way here." Just when he was feeling smug, who knew that Fu Ying's disturbance would cause the entire Honorable Martial Alliance to be in a difficult situation, the higher-ups mercilessly used the Red Leaf Army as a scapegoat, and this made him feel despair. Tang Tian was filled with disdain towards the Red Leaf Army. Any army beside him would definitely not be so defeated. In comparison, the Red Leaf Army was more like a group of cowards. That's not possible. The Red Leaf Army did not send back any information, so there is only one possibility. They were suddenly attacked, and the attack was very fierce. They did not even have time to send out any information, and were completely annihilated. A mechanical army definitely does not have that kind of strength. The one who spoke was a sinister-looking honorable martial elder. Meng Ta and the rest were immediately stunned, and all of them were filled with deep veneration. Xiaowen almost did not dare believe his own eyes. That was a complete gold-rank army. Such a gold-rank army? How could they be completely annihilated without any movement? Xiaowen's figure disappeared. He madly rushed to the front of the life and death wall. The huge wall was empty. There was nothing. "I don't know." His subordinate swallowed his saliva with difficulty. His face was pale white. But the honorable martial plate was completely annihilated. The vice master reported to him. "This is a brand new secret technique. We call it Light of Red Leaf. It is able to stimulate the potential of a martial artist, and in an extremely short period of time, it can help a martial artist form a higher-level dantian. Of course, the gold-rank martial artists that are produced like this have a very short lifespan. All the higher-ups of the Honorable Martial Alliance were completely stunned by this sudden news. A gold rank army, this was a complete gold rank army, and it was actually quietly annihilated. Impossible. Xiaoan used the last bit of his strength and said with difficulty, Red Leaf. Red Leaf army was completely defeated. Defeated? They are far from us. They need martial artists of the 8th level and above, while we only need martial artists of the 7th level. The Vice Master's face revealed a pleased look. Although we only have a 50% success rate, but we still have a huge advantage. The number of martial artists of the 7th level is much more than the number of martial artists of the 8th level. Even if half of them die, our advantage is still much bigger. But Tang Tian's words were not boasting, because the person in charge of the army was Bing. Bing, who had survived the most bitter battles, had a much deeper understanding of war than anyone else. And as the chief instructor of the Southern Cross Army, he was extremely knowledgeable on how to build a new army. Every army of Ursa Major Constellation was trained extremely harshly, including Ta Dun's Plateau Army, which was also reforged and looked brand new. In terms of the individual strength of a martial artist, there was no army under Tang Tian that could compare to the Red Leaf Army, but in terms of willpower to fight, the Red Leaf Army could not compare. Suddenly, a martial artist stumbled into the room. President, not good, not good. But what he did not expect was that the development of the situation would take a turn. Sean was only 45 years old this year, and was at the prime of his life, and had even more ambitions for the future. That was also why he stood out from the crowd and pushed Jones, who was recommended by Fu Ying, to the position of commander. Jones did not disappoint him. In the few competitions between the gold rank armies, the Red Leaf Army's results were rather outstanding, and this made Sean stand out. Everyone quietly cleaned up the battlefield. Then the question now is, what kind of power can achieve this? Elder Rongbo's question made everyone silent. Sean was satisfied. It's just that military leaders are not easy to find, we need to find a few. Nurture them well. Military leaders are rare talents in the future. We need to change the army but not the general. Let's go. We need to find the Light Blade Army. So many saints, only the Ecliptic Palace constellations could have them. To the Honorable Martial Alliance, that was something they did not want to see the most. 5 years is enough. Sean waved his hand and said disapprovingly, based on the current situation of the war, in 5 years, who knows how many battles have been fought? They do not need that long of a lifespan. What about the progress of the other branches? At most, they only have 5 years of lifespan. The Vice Guild Master immediately said, we will further improve the secret technique and extend their lifespan. The accumulation of the Honorable Martial Alliance could be seen at a glance. Meng Ta's words attracted everyone's interest. Tang Tian had always felt that if one's strength could not be compared to others, it was nothing as long as one trained hard. If one's willpower lost to others, then it would be worse than killing him. With regards to the destruction of the Red Leaf Army, Tang Tian did not put it to heart. 43 saints, such a powerful force. Victory was a matter of course. Sean was startled. After a while, he reacted, and his face changed. What did you say? How could the Red Leaf Army be defeated? Guild Master is wise. The Vice Guild Master immediately said. Then who did it? Tang Tian? Or that mechanical army? Another honorable martial elder asked. Forming an army had also become a necessity, because an army was more suitable for gold-ranked martial artists. Rongbo asked and answered his own question, his gaze sweeping across the entire field. The current situation was advantageous to the Red Leaf Army. As long as they were the first to occupy ancient Cold City, the merit would not be able to run away. The young man had completely forgotten that he had never interfered with the army before. He could not even find the direction of the army. Red Leaf Army. What exactly did they encounter? Report to the higher-ups. All destroyed. Sean's pupils dilated, his eyes filled with fear. The 10th gold branch had always been in the middle amongst the many gold branches. This year, to the various gold branches of the Honorable Martial Alliance, was undoubtedly the most intense year of change. The training of the gold branches was extremely strict. Their position was originally very aloof, but following the continuous escalation of the battles, the gold-ranked martial artists were no longer able to become the decisive force of the war, and the status of the gold branches quickly dropped. Meng Ta suddenly said, "Master, have you fought in many wars before?" All the elders present were very clear. To destroy a gold-ranked army in an extremely short period of time was extremely difficult. The heavy pressure enveloped the hearts of all the honorable martial elders present. Ursa Major Constellation definitely does not have such strength. Then the most important thing for us now is to find out who exactly is it that has intervened in this war. Chapter 527. Little Fool secretly pondered at the side. This secret stronghold, normal methods were unable to cause any damage to it. This question also piqued his interest. He put himself in their shoes and thought, if he were to face this stronghold, what method would he use to break through it? 43 saints. That's great. At that time, we will kill all these saints. When Tang Tian said that, the 42 saints' eyes turned red, their eyes filled with blood as they stared at the star treasure stronghold below. That gaze was like a pack of hungry wolves staring at a plump little lamb. Yishou Xen knew that this would be the toughest battle he had ever had. Everyone do not panic, our saints are already on the way, everyone focus on defending. Every soldier took out all of their treasures. Around the camp and in the sky, there were many treasures floating. All of these treasures were meticulously arranged. They were arranged in picturesque disorder, forming a star treasure stronghold. One by one, the treasures became even brighter. The condensed light aura flowed along the stronghold. Gradually, the colors disappeared, and a white dome-shaped stronghold that looked like it was made of ice and snow appeared in front of everyone. This was the largest star treasure stronghold he had ever built in his life. Poison? That's not realistic. With the thickness of the energy, how can it corrode in? As he thought about it, he became entranced. Little Fool even had the thought of killing himself. He really wanted to remind the fool, hey, we are enemies, we have already fought for so many days, don't act like nothing happened in the blink of an eye. The Light Blade Army had already received the news of the Red Leaf Army being wiped out, so they maintained their vigilance. When Tang Tian and the rest approached, the Light Blade Army was already in formation. No wonder the Red Leaf Army was wiped out without a word. Little Fool, who was enraged in his heart, had a black face. Without saying a word, he continued to refine spirit treasures. The Honorable Martial Alliance immediately reacted. Over 15 saints, all moved out. In terms of armies, the Honorable Martial Alliance was still lacking. That was Leo Constellation's strong point. But in terms of saints, the only thing that could make the Honorable Martial Alliance slightly afraid was Onyx Soul. Star Treasure Stronghold. Such a star treasure stronghold's construction cost was definitely more than 100 billion star coins. Yishou Xen knew that the odds were against them. If the other party only had 10 saints, he felt that there was still some hope. But there were a total of 43 saints floating in the air, and the aura they emitted was so terrifying that it was suffocating. Meng Ta whispered to Tang Tian, "Master, be careful. The scale of this star treasure stronghold is huge. Its defense must be very strong. This turtle shell is a bit hard." In the sky, Meng Ta and the rest were having a heated discussion. "Just give me the money and by that I won't hit you." "I will definitely agree." Yishou Xen calmed down a little. He was glad that he had prepared for the worst from the start, because he was afraid that the secret treasure stronghold would not be able to resist the enemy. He specially reserved a defensive position. He was determined to rely on the defense of the secret treasure stronghold. He still had some confidence in the star treasure stronghold. Close to 2,000 star treasures, the entire army spent a full 2 days to build it. But the possibility of Onyx Soul causing trouble this time was not high. Clan Elder Mu's beloved disciple Tonga had died in ancient Cold City. The hatred between Clan Elder Mu and Tang Tian could not be resolved. Clan Elder Mu's position in Onyx Soul was extremely high. No one would support Ursa Major Constellation at such a time. That would be Clan Elder Mu's fault. Is there a need? Is there a need? Saints are only SOSO. Master is still the best. This star treasure stronghold is definitely indestructible. Boss, we only have 15 saints, will it be enough? Is it Sagittarius constellation? Or Libra constellation? After thinking for a while, Tang Tian could not think of anything, so he simply said, whoever can think of a way to break it will be rewarded with a spirit treasure. This was his first time refining a spirit treasure in front of other saints. Meng Ta and the rest looked at Little Fool with bright eyes. When they saw how Little Fool could control the graceful cold flame as he wished, they were completely stunned. Ha! Think of a way to break our star treasure stronghold. Buzz buzz buzz. Yishou Xian gave the order. All of the martial artists formed groups of 3 to 5 and entered different halos. Beside every star treasure, there were people guarding it. Boss, what are they doing? Little Fool regretted the moment he said it. He should have acted as if nothing had happened and watched the fool make a fool of himself by the side. What was he thinking about? The general of the Light Blade Army was Yishou Xian. He raised his head and looked at the figures in the sky. He sucked in a breath of cold air. Although he already knew that the opponent had a group of saints, but when they appeared, it still shocked him. Star treasures of all different shapes floated in the sky. Looking at them, they looked like floating bubbles. They released different colored light auras. These light auras seemed to have substance. Layers upon layers of light auras fused into one, forming a hemispherical transparent stronghold. In the dark, there was Onyx Soul, a powerful enemy spying on them. Even so, the Honorable Martial Alliance was still able to firmly suppress the 12 ecliptic palaces. They displayed absolute dominance in the entire Heaven's Road. What they relied on was the astonishing number of saints. And Tang Tian had already found the Light Blade Army. If he did not make a statement, he would have accepted the loss. But since he had already spoken out, he naturally could not let it go. Even if the Ecliptic Palace's constellation was behind Ursa Major constellation, the Honorable Martial Alliance had no choice but to declare war. Tang Tian was satisfied. As expected, there would be courageous men under generous rewards. No, it was intelligent men. Tang Tian became impatient. What method do we use? Before Lion King Leong, no one dared to challenge the authority of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Not enough? You are overestimating these independent saints. Saints rely on spirit techniques and spirit treasures. What can these poor bastards have? You will know when the time comes. Those independent saints outside, compared to our Honorable Martial Alliance saints, are as poor as beggars. They only knew that as long as they needed it, they would send out saints to fight. One mystery after another, like layers upon layers of fog. And now, the Red Leaf Army was completely annihilated without any warning, causing the higher-ups of the Honorable Martial Alliance to be extremely nervous. They originally thought that Ursa Major constellation was a soft persimmon, and that they were being attacked from the front and back, but who knew that the one feeling the pressure was actually the Honorable Martial Alliance. The tortoise shell is a little hard. Tang Tian was angry and hateful, but also in a difficult situation. The opponent had displayed such a stubborn appearance, and with so many treasures piled up into a tortoise shell, even using his toes to think, he knew that it was definitely extremely hard. The Light Blade Army below heaved a sigh of relief. The entire Heaven's Road's gaze was focused on Sexton's constellation. If the Honorable Martial Alliance left with their tails between their legs, then it would be a fatal blow to the reputation of the Honorable Martial Alliance. The alliance that was originally extremely weak could very possibly collapse. As for the 12 ecliptic palaces, the number of saints was definitely incomparable to the Honorable Martial Alliance. How many star coins would they have to spend for so many densely packed treasures? For an army to set up a stronghold, it would be over 100 billion star coins. Honorable Martial Alliance, do you have to be so wasteful? Every star treasure contained a powerful energy, their attributes were different, and their power was different, like pieces of building blocks of different shapes. And those outstanding military leaders were able to organize and use the star treasures to construct fortifications, and that was the so-called Star Treasure Stronghold. No one knew how many saints there were in the Honorable Martial Alliance. The Honorable Martial Alliance was the most proficient in grooming saints in the entire Heaven's Road, and there was no other. On this point, even the archenemy of the Honorable Martial Alliance, Onyx Soul, had to admit, "Oh my, the Honorable Martial Alliance is truly rich and overbearing. How many star treasures did they spend? Collective Spirit Technique Attack? That's enough. There are at least 2,000 star treasures. That's enough to crush us to death." The Honorable Martial Alliance first thought of these two constellations. The relationship between the Sagittarius Empress and Crane was not shallow, and the mechanical techniques of Libra constellation and Ursa Major constellation were even more frequent. Fighting a war was truly to fight for money. Little Fool even had the heart to die, but at that moment, Tang Tian sensed it. His body was completely out of control, and he spilled the beans. We can refine specialized one-time use spirit treasures. The energy released by spirit treasures is much stronger than star treasures. It was his first time seeing a star treasure stronghold, and he was extremely curious. So star treasures could be used like that? It truly was an eye-opener. Tang Tian looked for a while, and understood what the star treasure stronghold was about. When Tang Tian regained his senses from his curiosity and surprise, he felt pain in his heart. After discussing for half a day, no one had any ideas. The scale of the star treasure stronghold was unprecedented, and its defense was also unprecedented. Star treasure fortifications were the most commonly used defensive methods for marching in the wilderness, and the star treasure stronghold was one of the strongest star treasure fortifications. Tang Tian was overjoyed. Little Fool is still the smart one. We will refine now. What's the big deal about star treasures? Let them have a taste of our spirit treasures. Although a large number of saints were sent to the front lines, but the deep accumulation of the Honorable Martial Alliance was completely displayed. In a short span of a day, they had mobilized 15 saints. All of these saints lived in seclusion, focusing on their own spirit techniques, and when the Honorable Martial Alliance summoned them, they did not hesitate to move. Regardless of which guess it was, there was one thing that could not be doubted, and that was that the Honorable Martial Alliance would definitely not allow Sexton's constellation to fall into a passive state. Tang Tian was also shocked by the opponent's formation. It was no wonder that the Honorable Martial Alliance was so suspicious. It was because of all the things that had happened in Sexton's constellation. The single valve stronghold that had been lost for many years actually appeared in ancient Cold City. Who was the creator? Who killed Fuing? What kind of treasure was the Sexton's eye implicated? This is a little troublesome. Tang Tian's eyes lit up. Little Fool, do you have any ideas? The 42 people frowned, racking their brains to think. The saints began to discuss among themselves. He raised the morale loudly, but he knew that it would not be of much use. The faces of the soldiers were filled with fear and despair. They were actually already prepared for a tough battle. From the moment they received the news, the Light Blade Army had already stopped advancing and set up camp at the same place, constructing the fortifications. This is definitely a huge investment. If this stronghold were to be exchanged for money, it would be a star coin stronghold. Enter the defensive position. The 15 saints, in a night, completed their formation. Because Sexton's constellation had already belonged to Ursa Major constellation, with the interference of the star power, they were unable to directly teleport to Sexton's constellation, so they were teleported to the Red Leaf Army's encampment. Little Fool, who was deep in thought, blurted out, "Use spirit treasures." Chapter 528. The Light Blade Army was formed from the backbone of the 3rd Gold Branch, and the news of the Red Leaf Army being wiped out had long spread. The 3rd Gold Branch was even more anxious. Without question, the enemy's next target would be the Light Blade Army. "Oh, how big is the scale?" Yuli asked curiously. Compared to Sean's 10th Gold Branch, the 3rd Gold Branch was much stronger. The current Gold Branch was no longer the same as before. The 9th Gold Branch was wiped out, the 7th Gold Branch was heavily injured, and was on the verge of death. Although the higher-ups had decided to rebuild the 9th Gold Branch and give the 7th Gold Branch even more support, but at least until now, they had not improved at all. "We're here. Use your blood and life to defend your homes, your loved ones, your dignity. Inside the mechanical spirit weapon, Luan's body trembled involuntarily. He thought about his past life, the life where he could never fill his stomach, the days where he could never see hope, like the gray sky. Everyone's gaze was attracted to Tang Tian and the 42 saints that he commanded. No one would have thought that in another land, another battle was about to begin. While the Light Blade Army was still searching for the Mechanical Army, Bing had already led the Mechanical Army back to Ursa Major Constellation. There was no roar of landslides or tsunamis, but the heavy breathing was like the beating of a drum, gradually becoming more impassioned. It was like a storm was brewing and gathering. Everyone was shouting and roaring in their hearts. Their blood was boiling, burning every inch of their skin. Everyone in the third gold branch was overjoyed. The morning light woke Luan up. He immediately climbed up, only to see Sky Tiger observing from the gap in the mountain range. "I've finally caught you guys." He suddenly thought about Xen, about Screw, about them at that time. They were just like the young men in front of him. Luan gathered his remaining strength, cheering everyone on. He felt that his entire body was numb, his lungs burning like a fire. For 3 days and 3 nights, without drinking or resting, they had been rushing without stopping. Even he who was persevering felt that he was reaching his limit. That's right, Shou Xian's ability to build fortifications, no one can compare to him. The Vice Master laughed. Furthermore, Shou Xian has built an unprecedented star treasure stronghold. In Black and White's memories, the ever-victorious bronze current that shook the world seemed to overlap with the bronze forest in front of them. Bing stared coldly at the immature soldiers. Compared to the opponent's gold-ranked martial artists, they were too lacking. However, he was filled with confidence because this was a group of confident and brave youths. They had their own fighting beliefs. Keep up. Don't fall behind. I do not wish to say how important this battle is to all of you, to Ursa Major Constellation. I just want to tell you that you have no way out. The land under their feet is your territory. This is the Ursa Major Constellation, it is your home, and the future of your family and loved ones are closely linked to this land. You guys still remember Lupus Constellation, right? Who still wants to go back? Go back to the barren and desolate Lupus Constellation? For a moment, the heavenly road was bustling with noise and excitement. Shoshin built the secret treasure fortress. The vice president heaved a sigh of relief. He used all the treasures to build the secret treasure fortress. When the soldiers flew back from the gap, the troops were already assembled. Yuri nodded in understanding. The destruction of the Red Leaf Army was a huge blow to the 10th branch. If Yi Shoshin was able to win the battle, then maybe they could take the chance to swallow up the 10th branch, and with that, their strength would have a qualitative leap. There were many gold-ranked martial artists in the gold branch, and thus there would often be martial artists that were bestowed as saints. But according to the rules of the martial group, any honorable martial artist that was bestowed as a saint had to enter the temple. The temple was mysterious and noble, and even they did not have the qualifications to enter. Even the honorable martial clan elders, if they did not step into the saint domain, were unable to enter the temple. Only saints had the qualifications to enter the temple, and that was the iron rule of the temple for thousands of years. He looked at Sky Tiger in front of him, but did not say a word. The number of non-battle members in the group had already decreased by more than a fifth, and they were all unconscious. I heard that the 10th branch's, Light of Red Leaf, has made great progress. The vice president pointed out. Go back? It was impossible for them to go back to the past. 2,000 pieces. Yuri was moved and immediately laughed out loud. That is definitely impregnable. I really want to see the expressions of those saints. Humph, Tang Tian thinks that by bringing a group of independent saints, he can do whatever he wants. He is truly naive. Wait till they fight with our saints, then they will know what a true saint is. The vice president had the same thoughts. In their eyes, independent saints were poor and had low standards. Other than the spirit society, they had nothing. He agreed, that's right, if the saints did not go to the temple, just the saints of our branch are enough to wipe them all out. It was all for those illusory reasons, for those ridiculous and foolish beliefs, for the warmth of the fire in his heart, and for the sake of protecting those who he couldn't lose. The vice president extended out 2 fingers, his tone filled with shock. Over 2,000 star treasures. Zhou Exin is truly willing to pay a huge price. Are all of you ready? Looking at the orderly mechanical army in front of him, Bing felt gratified. After 3 days and 3 nights of crazy running at full speed, they had already won the initiative in the battle. The opponent would never have thought that they had already circled to the front of the opponent. Sky Tiger raised his blue arm. How is it? Yuri asked. After Bing finished, Sky Tiger stopped moving and quietened down. Everyone had already reached their limit, and not even a minute had passed. Snoring sounds could be heard. Your king has given you such a fertile land, so now is the time for you to defend it. Yuri thought in his heart. He knew the importance of this battle, and the gazes of the few honorable martial elders were all focused on this battle. Now it was like living in heaven. Paper could not cover fire, and the Honorable Martial Alliance did not have any intention to hide. They announced the news at the first moment, and immediately, Heaven's Road was in an uproar. That's good. Yuri also relaxed, his face revealing a smile. Constructing fortifications is Zhou Xian's forte. Since Zhou Xian has already decided to defend to the death, it will not be easy for others to break through his defensive line. Tang Tian led 40 over saints to massacre the Red Leaf Army. Bing's slightly tired voice sounded in everyone's ears. It was like the sound of nature. All of the mechanical spirit weapons fell to the ground, swaying left and right. Bing's voice was very calm, but it caused everyone's expression to become serious. Their breathing became heavy, and their eyes became slightly bloodshot. No one had forgotten Lupus Constellation. They had forgotten the poverty and despair. They had forgotten the lowly life. Today, their clansmen had already started to live the life that they had dreamed of. They had a bright future. Bing looked at the Dawn Army in the distance. The Dawn Army was very far away. The entire army could only be seen as a small black dot. Zhou Exin, it's all up to you. With regards to this, Bing did not tell them. He looked at the army that he had built with his own hands and slowly opened his mouth. The temple was the ultimate goal of every honorable martial artist. As long as they entered the temple, it meant that they could obtain everything that they dreamed of. Such explosive news, like a hurricane, spread throughout the entire Heaven's Road. All the big constellations were speechless. The Honorable Martial Alliance harshly accused Tang Tian of setting up the plot, framing Fu Ying, and the saints who were forced into Fu Ying's disturbance were all accomplices. They helped Tang Tian frame Fu Ying and the Honorable Martial Alliance. The martial artist inside the mechanical spirit weapon had already fainted. Without saying anything, Luan placed the opponent's mechanical spirit weapon on his shoulder. All of you have 1 night to rest. The Honorable Martial Alliance also announced that they would use all means to punish Ursa Major Constellation. Bing's order made the entire army immediately tensed up. Everyone started to prepare for battle. Bing's mouth revealed a sneer. The opponent obviously did not take Ursa Major Constellation seriously. They had been advancing for days and nights, without any scouts, without any fear. They were all heading towards the heart of Ursa Major Constellation, the direction of Bearhead City. With the gold-ranked martial artists as the backbone, extending to the small captains, the entire army was truly a gold-ranked army. But, do you think that an army is made up of a group of outstanding martial artists? You guys are underestimating an army, underestimating a war. Prepare for battle. In the past, the Honorable Martial Alliance had many rules and regulations, and promotions were extremely difficult, but as the war became more and more intense, military achievements were raised to an unprecedented level. The Light Blade Army had achieved great merits, and as its base, the 3 RD Division's position would definitely rise. The unbridled advance of the Dawn Army allowed them to advance at an extremely fast speed. Bing did not have any smile on his face. His expression was extremely stern, like an ice-cold rock. The edges and corners were clearly revealed, reflecting the dense light aura of the mechanical spirit weapon in front of him. Let us take a good look. How will Tang Tian be beaten to a pulp by Zhou Exin? Yuli laughed out loud. After this battle, Zhou Exin will definitely become famous. There was no way out. Leo Constellation immediately expressed their welcome to Ursa Major Constellation. and even announced that they might support Ursa Major constellation. This announcement immediately made the Honorable Martial Alliance feel as if they were facing a great enemy. Compared to Ursa Major constellation, Leo constellation was an enemy of a different level. Not only that, the loss of gold-ranked martial artists at the front lines was extremely shocking. The various branches had suffered different degrees of losses, and forming an army had become the last choice of the branches. Bing was not surprised at all. The opponent had such confidence. He clenched his fists tightly, veins popping out. He swore in his heart, "Don't even think of taking everything away." Suddenly, an afterimage flashed past. Luan quivered, the mechanical spirit weapon sank down, and grabbed onto a mechanical spirit weapon that had lost control. Honorable Martial Alliance, the third gold branch's atmosphere was gloomy. "Move out." A group of mechanical spirit weapons flew close to the mountain range. Chapter 529. A gigantic light regiment rose from behind them. The terrifying energy undulation that was like the end of the world caused them to completely forget to breathe. A few gold-ranked martial artists who were too slow were engulfed by the expanding light regiment, and nothing was left. I'm just saying it in front of you. I'm really looking forward to our sudden appearance in Bearhead City, and the expressions of those country bumpkins. It will definitely be interesting. The 1,000 mechanical spirit weapons that swooped down at high speed still maintained a perfect battle formation. The layering was extremely good. If the military leader was outstanding enough, he would know what Bing was going to do next. "How far are we from Bearhead City?" Lester asked. The terrifying shock wave suddenly spread out. The air current that was like an iron wall heavily struck the backs of the gold-ranked martial artists. Hands raised, blades fell. The gold-ranked martial artist looked at the sky above him blankly, one after another. Small black dots drilled out from the clouds. With astonishing speed, they fell down. The small black dots were falling extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they were magnified a few times in their field of vision, and they could finally see clearly. In their field of vision, there was a dense mass of mechanical spirit weapons. Enemy attack. The Dawn Army belonged to the 11th Gold Branch. In the Honorable Martial Alliance, the 11th Gold Branch was not considered a strong branch, but they had their own unique points. The 11th Gold Branch's medical martial techniques were the most profound. Their gold-ranked martial artists were mostly proficient in medical martial techniques. Medical martial techniques were not suitable for battles. In order to pursue stronger fighting abilities, they walked on a unique path. Very quickly, the mechanical army entered the predetermined attacking position, but the Dawn Army did not notice. Kill! Very quickly, they drilled into the clouds. Mechanical martial artists had been forgotten by the world for too long. If they did not see it with their own eyes, they would definitely not believe it, but now, they only had one thought in their mind: escape. If there was an outstanding military leader, seeing such an assault, he would definitely turn and run without hesitation. The sky belonged to saints. "Something's wrong, listen." The light ball was not dazzling but rather slightly dim, but it was releasing a terrifying aura. Even the gold-ranked martial artists did not have the courage to resist. The weather was good. The thick clouds filtered out the small amount of energy undulations of the mechanical army. Dawn was the most important medical martial technique of the Dawn Army. It allowed the soldiers to recover their physical strength and true power in a short period of time, and its effects far exceeded the recovery-type medical martial techniques used by ordinary armies. It only required 3 hours for the soldiers to recover their strength. The only weakness was that when using Dawn, the army lacked defense. Lester's temper was explosive, his character was like fire, and the suicidal tactics that gave all the army's headaches came from his hands. The control aura displayed by the blue mechanical spirit weapon was simply unfathomable. Even the top famed generals would not be able to do that. At the back of Broken Clouds Mountain, borrowing the cover of the mountain, the mechanical army quickly climbed up the mountain range. Get out of here quickly." The rapidly descending dark clouds in the sky suddenly lit up. This made the 11th Gold Branch's gold-ranked martial artists extremely unique. In the competition between the armies of the Honorable Martial Alliance, The Dawn army had become an opponent that no one was willing to face. Their combat power was not considered strong, but their vitality was very strong. On the battlefield, this was a huge advantage. For example, if he was injured, as long as he treated it temporarily, he could continue fighting as if nothing had happened. All of the mechanical spirit weapons lit up at the same time. Isn't 3 small groups too little? The adjutant asked carefully. There really is. Wait, what is that? When receiving the treatment from Dawn, the martial artist would be in a semi-anesthetized state, and if the treatment was not completed, it would be difficult to get out of that state. A cold voice came out from the cold mechanical spirit weapon at the front of the formation. Even the sky full of screams were unable to disturb the cold voice. According to our current speed, we will reach Bear Head City in the afternoon of the day after tomorrow. The adjutant dutifully gave an accurate figure. This sentence had been passed down for 10,000 years. Bing's poker face was still cold, but his emotions were surging, as though there was a regiment of flames burning. He wanted to tell the world, other than the saints, the sky also belonged to a group of people. But in the blink of an eye, the light dimmed, and the vision of the gold-ranked martial artists returned to normal, and when they saw it clearly, they were overwhelmed with shock. The last bit of resistance in their hearts disappeared without a trace. Everyone turned and ran without hesitation. Lester looked at the tired faces of the soldiers and shook his head. Seize the time to rest, leave 3 small groups to be on guard, the rest use them. What a bitter life. I am also tired to death. This group of rascals are really enjoying life. The next time I rest, I must definitely enjoy them. The blade auras that were amplified by the mechanical spirit weapons were much more powerful, but at the same time, they were harder to control, and this military general was actually able to perfectly control the auras. Broken Clouds Mountain was the tallest mountain range in Ursa Major constellation. It was over 12,000 m above sea level, causing only half of it to be below the clouds. With the strong medical martial techniques as a guarantee, as long as the soldiers did not die on the spot, they would be fine. This also allowed the soldiers to be completely unafraid of getting injured in battle, to the point that they had specially researched a tactic to exchange injury for injury. Now that you mention it, I am also looking forward to it. What's that sound? Lester laughed out loud. They have long been left behind by us by God knows how far. When we moved out, they were still in Sexton's constellation. We have Dawn. If we continue to advance at full speed, how can they be faster than us? Even if we give them 2 more legs, it is impossible. Countless blade auras were like an astonishing school of fish, crazily surging towards Bing. Lester was not a professional military general, but he had researched on tactics, especially the small team coordination. It was always able to make people's eyes light up. When the 11th Gold Branch was preparing to form the Dawn Army, he had recommended himself, adding on his deep reputation, he had successfully obtained the position. Stop complaining. If Master hears you, you will be in deep trouble. The martial artists inside the 1,000 mechanical spirit weapons roared at the same time. The sky seemed to have exploded with thunder, causing the shocked gold-ranked martial artists' ears to go numb. As though they had suffered a heavy blow, they spat out blood at the same time, and their bodies were directly sent flying. A gigantic light ball with a diameter of over 30 m appeared in front of the exquisite and beautiful blue mechanical spirit weapon. The blade auras released by the mechanical spirit weapons were much more powerful than martial artists of the same realm, because it had been replenished by star rocks and was amplified. It was just that the flexibility of the mechanical spirit weapons could not be compared to martial artists, which led to the mechanical martial artists being unable to gain the upper hand in one-on-one battles. Lester frowned. Until the afternoon of the day after tomorrow? In front of such an attack, the 30 gold-ranked martial artists were as weak as withered twigs in a storm. All of their faces were pale white, their minds blank, their pupils dilated, filled with fear. The ice-cold mechanical spirit weapons, all of them had sinister expressions. The cold metal luster was faintly discernible in the intense airflow, causing them to feel as though they had fallen into an ice cellar. The 1,000 mechanical spirit weapons released their blade auras at the same time. Bing suppressed the agitation in his heart, his pupils became solemn, and he bellowed, "Everyone get ready, charge." They continued to ascend, borrowing the cover of the clouds. They went over the mountain ridge. The army that went over the mountain ridge immediately became cautious. Their speed immediately slowed down. To avoid causing a large-scale energy undulation, the army maintained a very slow speed. When they were flying at a slow speed, the energy undulation would be much smaller. Inside the dim light ball, there were a total of 1,000 mechanical spirit weapons blade auras. Their minds were blank. Upon landing, they struggled to climb back up, their mouths roared hysterically, and ran forward frantically. They were already in a frenzy, and did not notice the mechanical spirit weapons that had quietly appeared behind them. Chapter 530. After Little Fool studied it, he realized that the forceful subjugating bead was extremely miraculous. The light screen that the forceful subjugating bead sprinkled down was like rain that could continuously nourish his spirit domain. This nourishment was not as fast as the Saint Bones, but the help to the spirit domain was much greater than the Saint Bones. The snow-white cold flame once again slowly descended into the honorable martial cauldron, and a metal ball the size of an egg floated in front of Little Fool. The metal ball was bronze in color, but on the surface, there were countless of complicated silver lines. It was extremely beautiful. The whistling stopped abruptly. Sky Tiger suddenly lowered his head, looking down at the younger generation. Bing bellowed, "All of you must remember, we are the overlords of the sky. The sky that was snatched away by saints for 10,000 years, we will personally take it back." This technique was found from Gui Wu's remnant memories. The contents of the memories were too obscure and hard to understand. Most of them were mainly about Blood Meridian's training, but there were many other miscellaneous contents mixed in. He completely did not know how to refine spirit treasures. The stronghold was one. If not for his recent increase in refining standards, Little Fool himself would not have found it. The fool just now was actually faster than him by one step. The graceful cold flame that had a spirit value of 50 points, its power was astonishing. Ordinary star treasures were unable to resist it. Even the fool knew that it was a good thing, and spent a lot of time on it every day. Every young man in the army was shocked by Master Bing's tyrannical and peerless declaration. So, they were actually so strong. Little Fool, who had just stepped into the door of spirit treasures, had a deeper understanding of star treasures than the opponent. The opponent's military leader was not a saint, and his understanding of power was still at a lower level. The Star Treasure Stronghold did not have any technical requirements in Little Fool's eyes. The opponent's military leader could only piece all the star treasures together, and because of the astonishing quantity, it had such a defensive power. Bing thought about Screw, and his heart became even more upset. He stubbornly raised his head, not allowing his tears to flow. The golden skull floated in front of him. The white, graceful cold flame emitted from the golden skull. This golden skull was a rare saint item in the Honorable Martial Alliance. It was called the Honorable Martial Cauldron, and was a weapon used to refine spirit treasures. All of Fu Ying's contribution points did not exchange for spirit techniques, nor other spirit treasures, but for the Honorable Martial Cauldron, who knew that it would end up in Tang Tian's hands. All the saints threw the bombs in their hands at the same time without hesitation. The stronghold in his field of vision was rapidly approaching. Tang Tian roared, "Kill!" Little Fool's idea was simple and crude. If the opponent could borrow the power of the artifact, they could do the same. The power of the artifact was not limited to defense. Suddenly, Tang Tian shouted at the top of his lungs, "Everyone, throw the bombs at the triangular bulge." They had never seen such a crazy Master Bing, such a sinister Sky Tiger. Sexton's constellation. After swallowing the saint bone that Fu Ying left behind, Little Fool's spirit value had already broken through 100 points, reaching 102 points, and his spirit value was still increasing. What he did not expect the most was that refining spirit treasures could actually increase his spirit value even faster. No one noticed the waiter holding an umbrella behind Tang Tian. At this moment, he was the most shocked. He was sure that Tang Tian did not know anything about tactics. But little fool knew, he knew that in a siege like this, a burst of energy would always be more effective than adding fuel to the fire. So, their attacks were so ferocious. After experiencing that moment of disbelief, smiles of victory and confidence gradually appeared on the faces of the youths. Sky Tiger floated in the air above the gigantic pit. There were no complete corpses in the pit, only pieces of clothes mixed in the charred soil. The charred soil was giving off smoke. No. Throw them all together. Tang Tian shook his head without hesitation. If we can't break it, we will think of another way. The forceful subjugating bead floated above Little Fool's head, releasing a faint light screen that enveloped Little Fool's body. The current graceful cold flame was as white as snow, as though countless of ice grains had gathered together. Its flame jumped like a graceful figure dancing, a bone-chilling cold intent following every jump, slowly spreading out. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Enemy attack! All of you, stay alert." The forceful subjugating bead had its own universe. Look, I can unleash 1,000 level of control aura attack. Captain, I can still unleash an even stronger control aura attack. This little demon has already become very powerful. Captain, quickly look. Above the clouds, all the saints stood up as well. Little Fool was startled. He looked at Tang Tian as though he had seen a ghost. Yisho Xian looked at the sky. A day and a night had passed, but the opponent did not make any movements. This did not make him relax at all. On the contrary, the pressure on him was increasing. The opponent did not have the intention to give up. For the past 2 days, there were constantly saints patrolling around the stronghold. They did not dare to relax at all. Thinking about throwing away so many good things, Meng Ta's heart ached. Little demon, you must remember, us mechanical martial artists belong to the sky. All right, this brat must have guessed it. Captain. Everyone's face was filled with pain, but since Tang Tian said to throw them all together, then they could only throw them all together. It wrapped around the star treasures, and with an astonishing speed, the star treasures seemed to have melted and became perfectly round. His heart surged, unable to control himself, he suddenly roared towards the sky. The news of the Honorable Martial Alliance releasing a statement and sending 15 saints as support caused the atmosphere to become tense. Little Fool's expression also became extremely focused. When the last bomb was refined, Tang Tian stood up. Gewu was one of the 3 blood saints of Onyx Soul. How could the forceful subjugating bead that he refined be an ordinary object? Furthermore, the forceful subjugating bead was a product that was created for the ultimate goal of immortality. It contained Gui Wu's understanding of life and involved the profoundness of laws, which was far from what the current Little Fool could understand. He only hoped that he could hold on for another day. The little demon that year had already become even stronger. Looking at the gigantic pit beneath his feet, countless of gray images appeared in Bing's mind. That powerful voice was still so clear. Screw, do you see this? I will win, I will bring you to find Xen, we will definitely find Captain. How? How is that possible? One after another, the star treasures in his eyes continued to disintegrate. Suddenly his eyes lit up. Wait a minute. Everyone's mouths were wide open, looking at the sky, the cold and crazy figure. A seed quietly sprouted in their hearts. Little Fool knew the value of these memories, disregarding the name of the 3 blood saints, to be able to refine the forceful subjugating bead, to be able to touch upon immortality. How strong was he? They stared blankly at the quiet battlefield. The ground was littered with corpses, and the shockingly large, charred and gigantic pit that had a diameter of over 3 kilometers, it all showed that the victory was without a doubt. Any fragment of it was a priceless treasure. For a day and a night, Little Fool did not stop. To Little Fool, refining such a bomb was a relatively simple matter. Yisho Xian did not expect the Star Treasure Stronghold to be able to withstand the attacks of so many saints. No matter what, it was still 43 saints. If they gathered together, there would definitely be a way. Alun and the rest looked at the ground littered with corpses. The young mechanical martial artists were in a daze, mixed with disbelief. Alun, Xiao Wu and the rest were stunned by Master Bing's appearance. They stared blankly at the sky tiger who was roaring crazily. In their hearts, Master Bing was forever indifferent, forever free and unrestrained, the exquisite and beautiful sky tiger, just like the ice-cold luster on its entire body, was always calm and austere in battle, undefeatable, but always so ice-cold. Suddenly, a group of black dots flew down from the clouds. Yisho Xen quivered. The opponent is about to attack. Our army will definitely advance. How can he find it? Little Fool was looking forward to following behind Tang Tian. He was also looking forward to seeing the power of the spirit treasure bomb that he had carelessly created. His gaze swept across the stronghold. He was 120% focused. Since the star treasure stronghold was pieced together using star treasures, then there must be a so-called fulcrum. As long as he could find and destroy this fulcrum, he could completely destroy the entire stronghold. But in Little Fool's eyes, power was not something that could be pieced together with quantity. 10,000 years of slumber did not cause the flames in my heart to dim at all. The honorable martial cauldron's greatest use was to parasitize and optimize the spirit fire. Like that, not only could it free up the precious spirit value of the spirit domain, it could also allow the spirit fire to continuously evolve. As long as they could hold on for another day, the saints from temple would be able to kill their way here, and at that time, it would be time for them to counterattack. This guy. His fighting instincts are already so strong to such a ridiculous extent? Just like that. We won? This is a gold rank army? Everyone in the sky whistled, quickly approaching the stronghold. He chose the star treasures with completely different natures, and then used the spirit fire to break the barrier between them, allowing the two to completely fuse together. These newly refined bombs were not considered spirit treasures, but they were not pieced together like the other side's star treasure stronghold. They were a type of power that was half a level higher. As long as we control the sky, we will be able to control victory. A mournful voice broke the silence. All the soldiers in the stronghold saw the black dots that were rushing towards them. All of their faces changed. Everyone knew that the opponent was serious this time. Everyone had 2 bombs in their hands. This was the result of Little Fool's hard work for a day and a night. At that moment, the stronghold lit up with a dazzling light aura. Every soldier knew that it was a matter of life and death. True power frantically surged into the star treasures, the entire stronghold releasing an astonishing energy undulation, the thick energy barrier congealing to an astonishing degree. The graceful cold flame inside the honorable martial cauldron had a spirit value of 50 points. Little Fool waved his hand, keeping the bronze balls. He then threw 2 more star treasures into the graceful cold flame. Master, do you want to throw 2 to test it out? Meng Tai immediately shouted. He was a knowledgeable person. Tang Tian did not know the value of the bronze balls in his hands, but he knew. The faint energy flowing inside the bronze balls, the 2 completely opposite martial spirits, had achieved a miraculous balance. Close to 100 bronze balls were thrown out using different methods, drawing different trajectories in the air. They were like a group of bloodthirsty hornets, bringing along a sharp whistling sound, directly pouncing towards the triangular target of the stronghold. Chapter 5:31. Yisho Xen looked at his adjutant, the famous unyielding man of the 3rd Gold Branch. In truth, he did not like his adjutant, because he knew the adjutant was the true leader of the army, and he was the commander in name, but in truth, he was just a manager hired with a high salary. It was just that normally he was humble and did not like to fight, and the other party treated him with respect. But Little Fool's face had become extremely ugly, so gloomy that water could be squeezed out. With a thought, he disappeared with the forceful subjugating bead. Seeing that he was about to fly out from the hole, whoosh, a demonic light-colored flame tongue suddenly shot out and swallowed the Honorable Martial Group martial artist. In that moment, the Honorable Martial Group martial artist did not even have the time to scream and disappeared without leaving any traces. His adjutant also spoke out. I, Mo Lei, Light Blade Army's Vice Commander, representing the Light Blade Army, requests to surrender. No, there is no reason for you to receive this punishment alone. The adjutant struggled to stand up, his face regaining a bit of vitality. "This battle, we have lost. We do not have any ability to resist, although I am not a military general, but I know this is a disgrace. If I do not even have the courage to fight for the chance for my soldiers to surrender, then I will not be able to forgive myself." Surrender? Some of the more intelligent ones, like Meng Ta, thought more. If these flames touched the spirit treasures. This was an extremely unorthodox spirit treasure. Only those blood saints would be able to create such strange and demonic spirit treasures. Yin and Yang gave birth to spirit flames, and as the spirit flames continued to grow and evolve, it could be refined into a spirit-devouring flame. The most important thing to refine the spirit-devouring flame was to use star treasures to nurture it and let it continue to evolve. Who knew that the other party would surrender? After swallowing the entire star treasure stronghold, over 2,000 star treasures, they had already evolved. Bang! The stronghold was in complete chaos. Little fool. If it broke through 200 spirit value, the spirit-devouring flame could evolve again. After absorbing over 2,000 star treasures, the spirit-devouring flame's spirit value continued to rise, and had already reached over 180 spirit value, and was just a step away from 200 points. Damn, Honorable Martial Alliance, the trial of light is weird. In his field of vision, those little flames were like demonic but extremely hungry insects that were crazily gnawing at the fortress. All sorts of attacks of different attributes crazily bombarded the faint-colored flames. Little Fool was extremely unwilling. He had never thought that the power of this soul fire would be so great. And when the spirit fire turned into a rainbow flame, he suddenly thought of another type of spirit treasure recorded by Gui Wu. Tang Tian was also startled. He never thought that the Honorable Martial Alliance army would surrender. In his opinion, Honorable Martial Alliance members were usually very difficult to deal with and would fight to the death. The soldiers cried out in alarm, and there was a commotion. "Vice Commander!" The stronghold was being devoured at an astonishing speed. The entire Light Blade army was squeezed into a pile, like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Everyone's faces were filled with fear and despair. They knew that once the fortress was devoured, it would be their turn. The colorful flames would devour them cleanly. For the sake of his subordinates' lives, he was willing to bear humiliation and punishment. Not everyone had such courage and bravery. That flame, what exactly was it? Everyone's heart was filled with fear. The indestructible stronghold was actually melting like ice and snow. The unknown colorful flames continued to burn, like a monster continuously devouring the stronghold. All the Honorable Martial Group martial artists in the stronghold were stunned. Everyone was startled. They subconsciously looked towards the stronghold again. Yishou Xen looked at him calmly, but did not say a word. High-level backbones like them had all sworn an oath to the Honorable Martial Alliance, which was equivalent to some sort of martial spirit contract. If they were to go against it, they would be punished by the trial of light. The spirit-devouring flames suddenly became sluggish, and then quickly shrunk, and the colors became even denser. Suddenly, someone noticed that Zheng Yu's expression was strange. It was excited yet fearful. His entire body was trembling, and asked curiously, "Old Zheng, what's wrong with you?" One of the Honorable Martial Group martial artists' mental defenses finally collapsed. He screamed and flew out. He wanted to leave this place, leave this hell. It was not that they had never killed before, and it was not that they had never seen blood, but the terrifying scene in front of them caused their limbs to turn cold. The saints in the sky were also completely frightened by the shocking scene in front of them, their faces drained of all color. Yishou Xian nodded at him and shouted loudly. And when the trial of light blossomed from the two of them, it immediately made Tang Tian understand they were truly surrendering that they were willing to accept the punishment. That white light aura made Tang Tian feel the scent of a martial spirit contract. The current colorful flame had a name, called Spirit-Devouring Flame. Surrender! Although Yishou Xian's face was pale, but the expression on his face was the calmest out of all of them. But a pity, this group of people actually surrendered. Seems like the refinement of the bronze ball had a deviation, everyone thought at the same time. No one made a fuss. The master had only stepped into the saint level for a short period of time. It was normal to make a mistake. A strange flame tongue suddenly rose up, and at this time, the flame tongue was already dyed with a few colors, looking like a rainbow. And their target, the triangular region, had already disappeared without a trace. Xianxia looked at the hole that was continuously expanding. His entire person was dazed, his face without a trace of blood. His adjutant was frantically shouting, "Extinguish that fire! Quickly extinguish that fire!" And he had no other way. Like rain hitting a banana leaf, the bronze balls started to shatter. Everyone's spirit was roused. Looking carefully, as expected, every broken bronze ball, there was a flame, but very quickly, everyone revealed a look of disappointment. These flames were almost translucent, extremely dim. Every flame was only the size of a candle, as expected. It was a small flame, no wonder no one noticed it. The adjutant was furious, but gradually, his voice became softer and softer, and finally became silent, his expression ashen. The surrounding soldiers only had despair on their faces. No one had any will to fight, even he himself did not. Damn it! Surrender! The adjutant was startled and immediately said angrily, "How can we surrender? We are the Honorable Martial Alliance." But the intense fear caused them to completely lose control and only knew to attack with all their might, until the true power in their bodies was exhausted, and they sat on the ground. Meng Ta's eyes were sharp and could not help but shout, "Quickly look, it's a small flame." "What do we do?" The adjutant asked Xianxia. His teeth were chattering. Regardless of what attribute the attack was, when it struck the colorful flames, it was like a clay ox entering the ocean, disappearing without a trace. The spirit-devouring flame suddenly pounced towards the two of them and swallowed them whole. Just as the crowd exclaimed, the spirit-devouring flame left the two of them, leaving the two of them unconscious. I, Xianxia, the commander of the Light Blade Army, represent the Light Blade Army to surrender. The stronghold's energy barrier was extremely thick, far beyond their imagination. They had already made the preparations to fight a long battle, and in their expectations, only an even more terrifying energy explosion could cause a crack in the extremely thick energy barrier. The faces of the saints in the sky all changed. Little Fool secretly felt that it was a pity. The forceful subjugating bead flew out of his body and slowly revolved. Just now, he had used the forceful subjugating bead to control the spirit-devouring flame, and swallowed the soldier who was preparing to escape. White light auras blossomed from the two of them at the same time, enveloping the two of them. This was the Honorable Martial Alliance's trial of light. When an honorable martial artist went against an oath, the trial of light would appear. The two of them revealed looks of pain, their faces contorted, their martial spirits, under the light auras, were quickly combusting. The martial artists of the Light Blade Army were like trapped beasts in a cage. They frantically escaped from their various defensive positions. The two trial of light became more and more eye-catching, causing Little Fool to be even more unhappy. He snorted in his heart. The forceful subjugating bead in front of him gently revolved. The spirit-devouring flame could similarly grow by swallowing martial artists' martial spirits. If it completely swallowed the entire army, then it would definitely evolve. But the anticipated explosion did not appear. Not even a bit of light aura was produced, causing everyone to be startled. I will make this decision. The trial of light will also be borne by me, Xianxia said indifferently. Although they had only coordinated for a short period of time, but everyone was a saint. When they attacked, there was not much deviation, and almost all of the bronze balls struck the triangular target at the same time. However, at this moment he admired this assistant of his. The spirit-devouring flame transformed into a stream of flames and flew into the forceful subjugating bead. The trial of light in their bodies was actually swallowed by the spirit-devouring flame. They did not even feel a bit of energy undulation. On the Star Treasure Stronghold, there was an additional irregular hole. On the glossy and complete hemispherical stronghold, it was extremely eye-catching, and also extremely ugly and terrifying. Commander! Little Fool, who was holding the umbrella, suddenly revealed a look of ecstasy. He suddenly thought of a sentence in Gui Wu's memories. Zheng Yu's voice trembled a little. He cultivated a pupil-type spirit technique. When he first saw those little flames, he was also a little surprised. Habitually, he used his pupil-type spirit technique to take a look and was immediately stunned. The panicking Light Blade army soldiers appeared in front of everyone, as well as Yishou Xin and Mo Lei, who were enveloped by two balls of white light. The trial of light did not cause people to die. Its most terrifying aspect was that it would make traitors suffer a fate worse than death. No one's face had a trace of blood. They stared blankly at the roiling rainbow flames above their heads. It was like an unbridled monster that could never eat its fill. Those flames are terrifying. The saints in the sky seemed to have awoken from a dream. Their gazes all turned to look at Tang Tian. Little Fool, who was unresigned, was unhappy, and seeing the trial of light flaunting its might, he became even more unhappy. Little Fool was not willing to accept their surrender, but he was unable to go against Tang Tian's orders. This thought caused them to tremble in fear. Powerful? For such a small flame to burn such a gigantic stronghold, how long would it take? The six senses of saints were extremely sharp. They were able to sense the extremely dangerous energy undulation inside the bronze balls, but no one had thought that there would not even be a single explosion. Could it be a misconception? Pa pa pa! Tang Tian shouted. Who? Chapter 5:32. He was the closest blood saint in history to successfully possessing a body, but it was a pity that he met with Tang Tian, the zero-energy body, and was unlucky. Little Fool was dumbstruck, his face filled with shock. The Honorable Martial Alliance had not had any defections for over 300 years, especially when the two most important figures of the army announced their defection. The spirit-devouring flame enveloped the trial of light, but not only was the spirit-devouring flame unable to suppress the trial of light, it was constantly being corroded by the trial of light. The entire Light Blade army had defected. Gui Wu had made ample preparations. The Dawn army had been completely wiped out. The third gold branch's imprisonment had attracted the attention of the other gold branches. Very quickly, the news of Mo Lei's betrayal spread out, causing an uproar in the Honorable Martial Alliance. All the martial artists who had interacted with Mo Lei did not believe the news. In everyone's eyes, even if it was the last person to fight for the Honorable Martial Alliance, it might not be Mo Lei, but in the last 1,000 people to fight for the Honorable Martial Alliance, Mo Lei would definitely be there. As long as anyone betrayed the martial group, the trial of light would be activated, burning the traitor's martial spirit, causing him to suffer the pain of purgatory. For the sake of punishment, the trial of light would not immediately kill the traitor, but would continuously burn them, making them unable to live or die. This process would last for up to 72 years. In these 72 years, the traitor would not even be able to commit suicide, and could only wail day and night, and only after 72 years would his body and spirit be completely destroyed. Exactly how many laws did he gain enlightenment on? This was the gold branch that he had placed his hopes on? With a thought, the gray light ball suddenly lit up. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the golden rune chains were pulled, sigh sigh. The golden sands slowly flowed, the rune light ball rotated, the vast sea of laws slowly awoke from its long slumber. The Battle of the Saints was the main show. Every saint, the various elders, the important figures of the army, the backbones of the branches, would be required to swear absolute loyalty to the martial group, and every oath ceremony would plant the trial of light in their martial spirit. He stared blankly at the regiment of light auras floating around him. The light auras were like stars, floating in the void. Inside the ball of light, one could faintly see all sorts of ancient book fragments, crystal test tube fragments, all sorts of colored fragments, and the limbs of unknown star spirit beasts. Although Little Fool did not know what the light of judgment was, he felt an intense sense of danger. The spirit-devouring flame's light aura became weaker and weaker, while the trial of light became purer and gentler. An even stronger sense of danger enveloped Little Fool. He knew he could not wait any longer. However, the power of time still couldn't be resisted. Although the forceful subjugating bead that he refined could continuously nourish the saint's soul, but his saint's soul was still constantly weakening. Meanwhile, his collection and works also gradually turned to ashes. This was the power of time. It flowed silently and slowly, yet couldn't be reversed. It was cold and merciless. However, the prerequisite was that he could defeat the light of trial. The formation of the gold-ranked armies could not be said to be a failure, but it was obvious that they were not enough to make the higher-ups of the Honorable Martial Alliance feel at ease. Treasure. The waiter's eyes suddenly lit up with a demonic light. Of the 12 gold branches of the Honorable Martial Alliance, 5 had already suffered heavy losses. Following the progression of the war, the relationship between the armies and saints not only did they not alienate each other, but instead became even closer. If Little Fool was alone, he would definitely not touch the trial of light. Even if he had to give up on the spirit-devouring flame, he would not feel that it was a pity. Although the value of the 2,000 star treasures was astonishing, but now that he knew how to refine them, with Tang Tian's current wealth, he could once again refine a new spirit-devouring flame. Mo Lei inherited his father's dying wish, and entered the third gold branch, and quickly displayed astonishing talent and bravery, displaying extremely outstanding performance in the consecutive battles. He was the gold-ranked martial artist with the highest battle achievements in the entire third gold branch, and because of his outstanding performance, he was nominated to be Wuxia assistant during the formation of the Light Blade Army. Martial Spirit Chamber. Inside the forceful subjugating bead, another intense battle was in a deadlock. And the Raging Inferno army had already been requested to stop advancing and wait for the saints behind to converge. In a short period of time, 3 armies consecutively disappeared, which also meant that the 3 gold branches had suffered heavy losses. The Red Leaf Army belonged to the 10th Gold Branch, the Dawn Army belonged to the 11th Gold Branch, and the Light Blade Army belonged to the 3rd Gold Branch. And adding on the 9th Gold Branch that was destroyed by Leo Constellation, and the 7th Gold Branch that was heavily damaged. In the past, when the Honorable Martial Alliance established the 12 gold branches, they were extremely ambitious, and from the number 12, it could be seen that the gold branches were once viewed by the Honorable Martial Alliance as the backbone to fight against the 12 ecliptic palaces. Even after the establishment of the temple, the Honorable Martial Elders still placed high hopes on the 12 gold branches. The Gold Martial Group maintained an extremely cruel competition. The gold-ranked martial artists that they groomed all had powerful fighting capabilities, which made the Honorable Martial Elders extremely assured. It was because of his meticulous preparations that he did not go crazy, and instead, in the long years, he experimented with all sorts of new ideas, and left behind a large number of works. Little Fool regained his senses from the shock. He suppressed the excitement in his heart. He knew, if they could not win against the Trial of Light, then it would be dangerous. Ever since the creation of the Trial of Light, it had become a weapon to consolidate the rule of the Honorable Martial Alliance. And from then on, there were very few cases of the Honorable Martial Alliance defecting. Many of the Honorable Martial Alliance would rather commit suicide or perish together with the enemy than to surrender. This also caused the Honorable Martial Artists to be extremely brave and crazy in battle, and the various large constellations were not willing to fight with them. The 3rd Gold Branch was the first to bear the brunt. Yuli was suspended, the Vice President was suspended, and all the gold-ranked martial artists faced imprisonment and investigation. Very quickly, the relevant information regarding Wuxia and Mo Lei was sent to the hands of every Honorable Martial Elder. From the information, Wuxia was fine. He was not born in the Orthodox Honorable Martial Alliance. But Mo Lei was a genuine honorable martial artist. His body flowed with the most orthodox honorable martial bloodline. His father was an old man of the 3rd Gold Branch and was sacrificed in a battle. From Gui Wu's memories, he knew how to activate the forceful subjugating orb, and also knew that the forceful subjugating orb was definitely not a vessel for a saint spirit, but he never thought that it would be so magnificent inside. Every light ball was an independent space, although the majority of the treasures inside had already been destroyed to ashes, but just the remaining remnants, to them, was still a vast and unimaginably huge treasure trove. Out of the remaining 7 gold branches, the most anxious one was the 5th gold branch that the Raging Inferno army belonged to. Out of the 4 armies that fought with the Ursa Major constellation, only the Raging Inferno army was left. Little Fool's entire body lit up with a faint light aura, and called out to the depths of the void. A gray transparent light ball suddenly appeared from the void, and arrived in front of Little Fool. Without hesitation, Little Fool stepped into the light ball. The Honorable Martial Alliance's rage could be imagined. He did not know that Gui Wu knew that time was long, and that he did not know when he would be able to possess another body, so his saint spirit had to stay in the forceful subjugating orb for a long period of time. In the long river of time, loneliness itself was the greatest enemy. If there was nothing to do after a long time, one would go crazy, and that had nothing to do with willpower. Little Fool was suddenly filled with confidence. Without hesitation, he threw himself into the forceful subjugating orb. Little Fool was once again shocked by the spectacular scene in front of him, is that one of the 3 blood saints of Onyx Soul. Inside the forceful subjugating orb, there was actually such an astonishing treasure trove. When the news spread to the Honorable Martial Alliance, it caused a huge uproar. Adding the Red Leaf Army, it was already the 2nd army to be completely annihilated. On the battlefield, it was extremely rare for an entire army to be annihilated, because it meant that both sides had an insurmountable disparity in strength. After fighting with the Leo constellation for so long, the number of times an entire army was annihilated was not as many as the number of times they fought with the Ursa Major constellation. It was his first time entering the forceful subjugating orb, and he only felt his vision turning dark, as though he was being pulled into an endless void, just that. Wars could often change people's perception. The Honorable Martial Alliance did not make any further moves. They were waiting for the Raging Inferno army and the 10 saints to converge, waiting for the 15 saints from Temple to fight with the independent saints led by Tang Tian. But after knowing the situation inside, Little Fool threw the thought of giving up to the back of his head. In the eyes of the Honorable Martial Elders, Mo Lei could be said to be the most direct descendant of the Honorable Martial Artist, and was the most trustworthy Honorable Martial Artist. His loyalty was unquestionable. If even Mo Lei, a martial artist with the blood of the Honorable Martial Artist, would betray them, then who wouldn't? Then let's use the victory of this battle as a sacrifice to Senior Gui Wu. But what truly shocked the Honorable Martial Alliance was not the annihilation of the entire army, but the betrayal of the Light Blade army. The scene in front of him changed once again. To be able to control the army, and maintain the absolute loyalty of the entire army to the Honorable Martial Alliance, the Honorable Martial Alliance had gone through many generations of sages to research and create the Trial of Light. How could such a person betray them? The reason why the Dawn army was annihilated was because of one important reason, and that was because they were alone and blindly rushed in. Without the protection of saints, they were swallowed by the enemy's mechanical army. This conclusion received the approval of many people. The space inside the forceful subjugating bead was extremely huge, and in the void, Gui Wu opened up many independent spaces. All these independent spaces stored all sorts of collections that Gui Wu had when he was alive. There were records, collections, countless of them. And, to pass the time, Gui Wu even moved his own blood meridian's laboratory inside, so that when he was bored he could continue his own experiments. Dense and boundless golden talisman markings floated in the sky. They were either strung together to form golden chains, or gathered together to form balls of light. They had a variety of different shapes, or were like quicksand or seaweed. They silently floated in every corner of the sky, and the end couldn't be seen with a single glance. But at that moment he could not care about anything else. The gray light ball was the final hiding place of the forceful subjugating bead, and was also the final hub to control the forceful subjugating bead. But out of the 12 gold branches, in the blink of an eye, only 7 remained. Chapter 5:33. One per person is enough. Little Fool was initially unwilling, but after thinking about it, if he were to give them the spirit-devouring flame, then he would not need to refine spirit treasures for them. To the spirit-devouring flame, the trial of light's law core was of a higher level, and that was the only way for it to have a qualitative leap. The runes that had nowhere to run blossomed with white light, and the light dots that were closest to it were constantly being destroyed. But the number of firefly lights was too astonishing. They were slowly closing in, and the white light's range was constantly being compressed. Spirit-devouring blood group. Mo Lei's face changed. Everyone's face changed. Meng Ta could not help but ask, "How long more?" But in front of the sea of fireflies, the trial of light was so small, so dim, so insignificant. All the firefly light auras flew towards the spirit-devouring flame from all directions. Just as Tang Tian was troubled, Yishou Xian and Mo Lei, who were unconscious, woke up. The Light Blade Army's low morale was roused. Many of the martial artists who were at a loss found their backbone and calmed down. To be willing to endure the trial of light for their subordinates, Yishou Xian and Mo Lei used their actions to gain the recognition of the entire Light Blade Army. Every single wave of the Sea of Laws was silent, but in Little Fool's heart, it was like thunder, rumbling and surging. The current might of the spirit-devouring flame was already comparable to Fu Ying's full-force attack, and if the enemy was an honorable martial alliance, its might would increase by several folds. That also meant, from now on, Little Fool, who possessed the spirit-devouring flame, would become the natural enemy of the honorable martial saints. Tang Tian was startled, then replied, "Oh, so it's like that?" Little Fool's mind was shaken. The current him was like a canoe in the ocean, lost in the vast ocean. He was like a speck of dust. A strange look flashed past Little Fool's eyes. He closed his eyes and carefully felt the spirit-devouring flame, his delicate face revealing a look of ecstasy. And because it was used against saints and higher-ups, the trial of light was extremely destructive against light attribute spirit techniques and light attribute true power. In the air, there was only a fingernail-sized white flame. The flame did not have any attributes, but it released a cold might. The severely injured spirit-devouring flame seemed to have smelled something delicious, suddenly transforming into a line of fire, swiftly swallowing this ball of white flame. The spirit-devouring flame's spirit value was currently 260 points. And because it had swallowed the trial of light, the spirit-devouring flame had an even more astonishing destructive power against the honorable martial alliance's spirit techniques. Not everyone had the qualifications to obtain the trial of light. It was used to control the higher-ups and saints of the honorable martial alliance. Ordinary gold-ranked martial artists did not even have the qualifications to be planted with the trial of light, and people like Jing Hao, when he defected, he was not even a gold-ranked martial artist. Yishou Xian and Mo Lei were stunned. They looked at Tang Tian strangely. Disguise? That's possible. Although Dian Gu was excited, but he still looked at Little Fool and did not reply. The Light Blade Army's morale was extremely low. The two masters were still unconscious, and they were like a group of dragons without a leader. The biggest problem was, they still could not accept the fact that they had surrendered. The pride bestowed to them by the honorable martial alliance had long seeped into their bones. In their eyes, Tang Tian and the rest were just a group of peasants. Dian Gu said, "The spirit-devouring flame was created by a blood meridian saint, Su Ji Sun. This blood meridian saint was not from Onyx Soul, but an independent saint. Because he offended the honorable martial alliance, he was chased after, and this person found a group of independent saints, and taught them the spirit-devouring flame, and asked them to swear a saint oath not to spread it. This group of people is the spirit-devouring blood group. If only Uncle Bing was here." Tang Tian thought, but now that Uncle Bing was not here, and Meng Ta and the rest were not proficient in such matters, Tang Tian had no choice but to bite the bullet. The sea of fireflies light aura shone on Little Fool's face, revealing the shock and fear on his face. It was extremely clear. Tang Tian did not expect the Light Blade Army to surrender, and was unprepared, and was caught unprepared. Since the other party had surrendered, they could not possibly kill all of them. Then how to settle the Light Blade Army immediately became a huge problem. That's great, then each person will have two. Tang Tian felt that it was a good idea. They were defeated by a group of peasants, and they surrendered. Tang Tian scratched his chin and started to think. At most half a day. The one who spoke was Mo Lei, although his heart was filled with pain, but at that moment he knew, if Tang Tian and the rest were defeated, the fate of the Light Blade army would be massacred. Hundreds of millions of law runes, like a vast ocean, slowly swayed. Their speed was extremely slow, extremely leisurely. The trial of light became even more fearful. Suddenly its light aura converged, converging into a white rune, and escaped from the spirit-devouring flame. Ah! Spirit-devouring flame. Little Two waved his hand, and the spirit-devouring flame flew into his palm. The curve of his mouth became bigger and bigger, until he laughed out loud. The trial of light seemed to have sensed danger. Suddenly the light aura expanded, frantically corroding the spirit-devouring flame. Tang Tian did not know of Temple's prestige, but the others were extremely clear, and those who heard of it all had a change in expression. Kill one to warn 100. The two of them were true men. The spirit-devouring flame's colors gradually dimmed, and became translucent again. It quietly floated in the air, without any dangerous aura. The higher-ups would definitely punish the Light Blade army harshly. Mo Lei even suspected that even death would not be able to atone for their sins. He did not know why he agreed to Yi Shou Xian's decision. Was it because he was afraid of death? He knew it was not. As compared to the trial of light, death was much more comfortable. To be able to lay down such a foundation, how could he be a fool? How could he not have any shrewdness? Suddenly Yi Shou Xian spoke out. The bronze ball that Master used just now is a unique weapon. The individual strength of the Light Blade army was not weak, and if they were not careful, it could easily lead to a disaster. He patted the shoulders of the two of them and said sincerely, "From now on, we are all brothers." The rune was submerged by the firefly lights. The white light became dimmer and dimmer, until it disappeared. But no matter how he rushed to the left and right, the endless void had no end. This result was a huge blow to them. No one hated the two masters, because the trial of light was blossoming right in front of them, and the two masters were willing to receive the trial of light, all for them. Is it very powerful? Meng Ta asked curiously. Meng Ta was considered one of the most powerful people out of all of them, and if even he said that he did not have a grasp of it, then the rest were even more inferior. All saints wanted face. If the difference was not too big, they would definitely not admit that they were weaker. The white rune was extremely fast. It frantically rushed to the left and right, trying to find a way to escape. Was this seemingly stupid fellow really the godlike young lad that appeared out of nowhere? The firefly lights around it increased. It became more and more frightened and more crazy, but no matter which direction it flew to, there were light dots everywhere, and it was completely surrounded. Bang! Tang Tian slapped his thigh. That's right, the spirit-devouring flame was a type of half-a-spirit treasure, so it could cause harm to saints. Tang Tian immediately summoned Little Fool. Little Fool, if you start to refine bombs now, how many can you make in half a day? His childish laughter was filled with evil intent and craziness. Tang Tian was overjoyed. In truth, he admired the two of them. Everyone nodded their heads. Meng Ta also said, "That's right, that flame is extremely harmful to saints." Meng Ta saw that Tang Tian was blindly optimistic and could only reveal his own weakness. "Master, we are all independent saints. Compared to the saints from Temple, regardless of equipment or strength, we are lacking." Countless of light dots, like a tide, from all directions, slowly closed in on it. Chapter 5:34. Mo Lei's face darkened. Such an evil organization. The silver shield pierced into the ground heavily, a dull sound, as though it was tofu. Mo Lei's body staggered. Mo Lei did not believe in evil. Holding onto the shield with both hands, all the true power in his body surged. He exhaled and roared. The huge shield slowly left the ground, and when it was 3 inches from the ground, it stopped in the air. Mo Lei's face was flushed red, veins popping out. Obviously he was using all his strength. That's right. Little Fool could not help but exclaim. Bang! What is a tyrant? This is a real tyrant. Tang Tian's face was full of envy, his eyes red. As the saying goes, without becoming a saint, one does not know what poverty is. Once upon a time, he thought that he had finally made some achievements, climbed to a certain height, and finally became rich, but when he stepped into the saint level, he realized how laughable his thoughts were. Such a heavy shield. Mo Lei was surprised. He stood up and walked to the front of the silver shield. He tried to lift it, but he could not, and the surprise on his face grew. I know. Mo Lei lowered his head and said, picking a suitable weapon, Tang Tian did not linger, since these treasures would not run away. What I know is different from what you know. Dian Gu's face revealed a look of ridicule. What I know is the Honorable Martial Alliance wanted to obtain the spirit-devouring flame, but was rejected by Su Ji-sun, so they pinned a crime on Su Ji-sun and chased after him. Su Ji-sun's entire family all died in the hands of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Su Ji-sun was inconsolable, so he started to look for the independent saints who were chased by the Honorable Martial Alliance and formed the spirit-devouring blood group. They only have one goal, and that is to seek revenge from the Honorable Martial Alliance. Xing, today we killed another Honorable Martial Alliance saint. When everyone was eating, we talked about the rumors outside, and everyone knew that it was the Honorable Martial Alliance's doing. What do the people outside think of us? Who would care? But to be able to make the Honorable Martial Alliance so nervous, it truly makes people happy. I have already found some clues about the person who hurt you. I will definitely take revenge for you. I dreamed of you last night, and you were still so beautiful. I'll visit you soon. What kind of flowers do you like? How about the irises? Oh, and onion rings, those are your favorite. Mo Lei's face turned pale. He stood there in a daze, as if he had lost his soul. He grabbed the shield with one hand and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. The shield looked like a thin sheet of iron, but it was shockingly heavy in his hand. If not for Tang Tian's zero-energy body, with outstanding strength, he might not even be able to lift the shield. If it's extinguished, can you fire another round? He shot a glance at Mori, feeling some sympathy in his heart. There was nothing more painful than the collapse of one's beliefs. To him, that hatred was far away. Everyone fed him and teased him at the same time. The adults were not around anyway. Not only Mo Lei, Meng Ta and the rest's faces also changed. They might not know about the soul-devouring flame, but how could they not know about the infamous soul-devouring blood group? It's the soul-devouring flame. Yi Shouxin and Mo Lei sat on the ground. Your current appearance will cause the soldiers to panic. Yi Shouxin reminded. The notes were passed around in everyone's hands. Everyone became quiet. Who knows, we might be able to find some good things. Tang Tian's face was full of desire. Looking at the light balls, he drooled. What 3 blood saints? He had never heard of them before. Only when he personally saw the things that Gui Wu had left behind did Tang Tian truly understand how powerful and unfathomable Gui Wu was in the past. Little Fool was more interested in the ancient records, while Tang Tian was more interested in the treasures that were left behind. Xing, I am coming to see you. I am so happy. Xing, I killed 26 Honorable Martial Alliance saints. I did not kill anyone else. Not a single one. Xing, you know I am very cowardly. I just want to take revenge for you. No one else has it. Old Su is also in a miserable state. I wonder if he can hold on. It's good that he died. Mo Lei was an outstanding gold-ranked martial artist. He was not far from being bestowed as a saint, but he could not lift the shield. Mo Lei raised his head and laughed bitterly. Don't tell me you think that we still have a chance to live? That is the temple. Little Fool did not think that the spirit-devouring flame would have such a huge reputation. But thinking about it, it was true. If it was an ordinary item, how could it enter the eyes of a powerful martial artist like Senior Gui Wu? Xiang is dead. He wanted us to devour his saint spirit before he died. He said that he still wants to fight with us. He said that he is going to see his son. He is very happy. He told us not to cry. But why can't my tears stop? Why am I still so cowardly? Xing, if I die, I will also be happy. Then I can be with you. Old Su said that it's just the few of us. We will fight to the death. Xing, maybe I will meet up with you soon. But you have to bless me. Kill a few more honorable martial alliance saints. If not for them, we will definitely be very happy. Mo Lei did not retreat. He stared at Dian Gu. The spirit-devouring blood group specializes in devouring the saint spirits of saints. The number of saints that died in their hands is countless. They kill for fun. Isn't that evil? Yishou Xen looked at the dejected Mo Lei. What? Are you hurt? Actually, it doesn't matter. Anyways, we have already become the traitors of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Although he did not want to expose Mo Lei's scars. But, thinking about the battle that was about to happen, he decided to make things clear. Tang Tian and Little Fool ran into the forceful subjugating bead. His face was filled with shock. Tang Tian's eyes lit up. He placed the big shield in front of him. After inspecting it carefully, the big shield was in perfect condition. Good stuff. Tang Tian immediately revealed a look of joy. His fist was not weak at all. After waving it around a few times, he felt that it was suitable for him. Tang Tian then kept it. Everyone looked at Little Fool with blazing eyes. No one knew the origin of the spirit-devouring blood group. It was an extremely mysterious organization. What it was related to was killing and devouring spirits. In everyone's impression, it was an extremely dangerous, savage and bloodthirsty organization. Dian Gu was expressionless. I am the descendant of the members of the spirit-devouring blood group. I have the diary that they left behind. On it are all the records of the people they killed. Do you want to take a look? Although Mo Lei was not a blood meridian saint, but his strength was not small. Nonsense. Mo Lei glared angrily. Dian Gu's words and the diary were more effective than anything else. Not only did everyone not reject the spirit-devouring flame, they were instead filled with anticipation. Everyone had heard of the spirit-devouring blood group's ferocious name. One could imagine the might of the spirit-devouring flame. From the diary, it could be seen that for one person to kill 26 saints from the temple, such a battle record could definitely be called glorious. Spirit treasures were scattered all over the ground. Most of them had already decayed and disappeared. Only a few were still in good condition. The most eye-catching one was a large silver shield. Dian Gu's expression did not change much. He had already read this diary many times. His mentality was very good. He spread out his hands and said, "Don't look at me like that. After so many generations, the soul-devouring blood group has already disappeared for many years. The hatred has also long dissipated into thin air. I just want to tell you that the spirit-devouring flame is not that evil." The group of people all held onto a star treasure. Facing the little flame in front of them, they were extremely careful, as though they were feeding a pet. With Tang Tian's pitiful knowledge, he was unable to see the material of the shield. The diary could not be faked. The pages had already turned yellow. It had experienced many years. Especially when Tang Tian thought about it. There was going to be an intense battle soon. Finding a suitable spirit treasure was more important than anything else. The first place Tang Tian went to was the weapon room. Gui Wu's collection was not little. Although many of them had already turned into ashes, there were still many that remained. Tell me about Sanctum. I am so poor. The first thing Tang Tian saw was the silver shield. Xing, today's battle was truly bitter. Midar City was destroyed by us. The Honorable Martial Alliance used civilians as bait. We all knew that they would do that. But we never expected that they would find out so quickly that we would not take action against civilians. Xiang was injured. He was lured to the children's hospital and was ambushed. He did not take action. He thought about his dead son. He was heavily injured. Xiaopa saved him. God bless him and let him live. Xing, I miss you. I drank so much wine. Why am I not drunk? This flame is too small. Will it really not extinguish? Mo Lei subconsciously took it and flipped it open. Flipping through the pages, his face turned green. Dian Gu interrupted coldly, "How is it evil?" Yishou Xian was speechless. Tang Tian took a look at the shield. His intuition was extremely sharp. Although the shield looked extremely gaudy, but he could sense a faint chi from it. He tried punching the shield. Bang, a loud sound came out. The shield trembled, and a ripple flashed. Tang Tian felt as though he had punched something slippery. His strength was immediately diverted. Interesting. A voice came out from behind. Tang Tian carried a gigantic silver shield and walked in front of the two of them. Tang Tian casually stuck the silver shield into the ground. Bang, dirt flew out and the ground trembled. Yishou Xian was shocked. Dian Gu took out an old notebook and passed it to Mo Lei. One big and one small, one human and one spirit, they split up, each searching for their own interesting things. The silver shield was extremely large, over 3 m tall. It was shaped like a gigantic leaf, and the surface of the shield was covered with fine grass and wood carvings, shining with silver light. Just that the shield was extremely thin, like a thin layer of metal. No matter how one looked at it, it looked like an ornament and not a spirit treasure. Little Fool's thoughts were all on the treasures inside the forceful subjugating bead. He did not have the heart to tangle with these people. He quickly refined a copper ball for each of them and then told them how to use it. He then went back into the forceful subjugating bead. The handwriting of the last paragraph of the notes was crooked and intermittent. Master Little Fool will give you a solid blow. Mo Lei was startled. Chapter 5:35. Voila, a pile of things poured out from the cloth bag. Oh my god. Meng Ta stopped talking. Wait a minute. The weight of the silver shield caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. The bronze saints of the temple are far more powerful than ordinary independent saints. Mo Lei looked at Meng Ta and the rest. This treasure mountain could at least give everyone 500 star treasures, although the highest was only a silver rank, but it was extremely nourishing to the spirit-devouring flame. Yishou Xian observed for a long time, then suddenly thought of something and blurted out, "Silver-lined heavy shield. This is the silver-lined heavy shield." This small mountain of star treasures had at least 10,000 pieces. What kind of person would carry 10,000 pieces of star treasures with him? Without saying a word, Tang Tian took out all his star treasures and threw them to them. Use them all. Mo Lei was enlightened and nodded his head. If it's the silver-lined heavy shield, then it's possible. Meng Ta walked over. How powerful is it? Hurry up, hurry up. Tang Tian urged. Yishou Xian and Meng Ta looked at each other. But the rest of them were not. Yishou Xian watched in fear. He suddenly felt that the bronze saints of the temple, if they were to be careless, they would be in big trouble. Meng Ta and the rest were completely shocked by the words of the nouveau riche. They suddenly realized it was as if they were sitting on a very thick thigh. Meng Ta kept his spirit-devouring flame and exclaimed, "This is the first time in my life that I feel so good, I can die without regrets." Tang Tian's gaze swept across the spirit-devouring flame in everyone's hands. He raised his head and asked Meng Ta, "How much spirit value does the spirit-devouring flame have?" Everyone's spirit-devouring flame was expanding rapidly. Tang Tian turned to look at the saints who had stopped. "You guys have finished too?" There was only one thought in his mind, so the legendary word was actually possible. "How powerful are the saints of the temple?" Tang Tian asked curiously. Mo Lei kept on spitting out names that Yishou Xian was familiar with, and gradually, Yishou Xian became numb. That feeling was like being in a museum of the highest level, listening to a senior guide explain those priceless cultural relics. Yishou Xian's expression was sluggish as he looked at the spirit treasures on the floor. His mind was blank, and there was only one sentence in his mind: "This is not real, this is not real, this is not real." He stared blankly at the pile of multicolored spirit treasures, expressionless like a machine. Autumn leaf spear. Sky wheel. That looks a little like the black mirror of a swan. Distant triangle star dart. Azure back hair. This one's shape is very strange. I seem to have some impression. They were all independent saints and were very poor. They did not have many secret treasures on them. Meng Ta and the rest cheered and rushed towards the treasure mountain. "Wow, so powerful! Such a standard indeed killed all of them in an instant. Among these saints, none of them had a spirit value exceeding 300 points. A spirit treasure with spirit value above 160 points, aha, today's weather is really good. Beside him, another saint was trembling all over, clutching his chest while trembling. Why is my heart beating so fast? I can't take it anymore. Www. Give me a slap. Just at that moment, Tang Tian appeared in front of everyone again, carrying a big sack. Mo Lei could hear the dissatisfaction in Meng Ta's tone, but he was not moved and said, "The standard for a bronze saint of the temple is a spirit value of at least 300 points. Attack spirit techniques must not be lower than 120 points. Saints who do not reach the standard are just trainee saints of the temple. And upon becoming a bronze saint, the lowest equipment is at least a spirit treasure with a spirit value of 100 points. In fact, other than the newcomers who have just entered the temple, their spirit treasures are all above 150 points." Many of them hugged their heads with both hands, clutching their hair tightly. Their faces were filled with fear, as though they had seen a monster. Mo Lei looked at Tang Tian as though he was looking at an idiot. Why did this guy keep asking such childish questions? But he still answered dutifully. The saints of the temple are also divided into gold, silver, and bronze. The 15 saints that were sent this time are all bronze saints. This spirit-devouring flame is really special. It is actually not restricted by the spirit domain's spirit value. Zheng Yu's face was filled with joy. Armed to the teeth. Meng Ta laughed out loud. From today onwards, the shotguns will be replaced with cannons. Furthermore, if I knew earlier, I would have brought more, was a very normal sentence. But to say it in front of a mountain of treasures, it was extremely domineering. Dian Gu opened his eyes and explained, "Because the spirit-devouring flame does not have a body, Yin and Yang gave birth to the spirit fire, and the spirit fire already possesses some simple life characteristics. And after swallowing the treasures, the spirit fire continuously evolves. From a certain point of view, the life characteristics are even more obvious. It has intelligence, and everyone's spirit-devouring flame is different." Mo Lei sighed in his heart. Going to the temple was once his dream, but he did not expect that there would be a day where he would become the target of the temple's extermination. Everyone's frozen and stiff face reflected all sorts of gorgeous and resplendent light auras. Everyone's breathing were all different kinds of undulations, to the point of suffocation. "Let's see what we can use." Silver-lined heavy shield? It was the first time Tang Tian heard of this name. The Honorable Martial Alliance's army actually lost to others in terms of money. This guy is actually the master of Aquarius constellation in disguise. Who exactly is the rich and powerful? But Yi Shou Xen was thinking even more. He was acutely aware, as long as there were enough treasures, they could greatly strengthen the spirit-devouring flame. Like Meng Ta and the rest, their current fighting strength had increased by leaps and bounds, and had a qualitative leap. He had used a lot of treasures, a total of more than 1,000 pieces. Mo Lei was also completely crazy. Is there really something wrong with this guy's brain? A small mountain piled up in front of everyone. Is Ursa Major constellation already so rich? No one noticed. In such a short period of time, Tang Tian turned and disappeared. Mo Lei and Yi Shou Xen looked at Tang Tian in a daze. Many of the Light Blade Army people looked at Meng Ta and the rest in envy. Spirit treasures with a spirit value of 100 points and above were extremely expensive, an astronomical figure. Furthermore, for a famous and practical spirit treasure like the spirit-devouring flame, it was not limited by the spirit value. If they were to sell it, it would definitely be sold for a sky-high price. It was truly powerful. Little Fool's spirit value had just broken through 100 points, but adding the graceful sword and the spirit-devouring flame, they still had a fighting chance. Although their voices were soft, but saints naturally had extraordinary hearing. Meng Ta and the rest could hear everything, and many of them stopped. Yi Shou Xen quivered, and suddenly regained his senses from the shock. There were no heavy gasps, only intermittent gasps that sounded like they could die at any time. But Tang Tian did not forget the most important matter, and asked, "Tell me about temple, How are the strength of this batch of saints? Temple is the strongest organization in the Honorable Martial Alliance. They are all formed by saints, their positions are aloof, and no one can order them. Even the Honorable Martial Clan elders, when they need help from Temple, can only ask for help from Temple. I don't know if it is enough, I should have brought more. Tang Tian said in a vexed tone. All of the star treasures were Tang Tian's spoils of war. Many of them had already been given to Han Tao and Pai Pa to handle, but there were still a few left. Every time he said a name, Yisho Xian's body would twitch. The entire Lightblade army had only managed to gather 2,000 star treasures, and made a star treasure stronghold, but now that they saw Tang Tian casually taking out a mountain of star treasures, the impact was so intense that it made the entire Lightblade army speechless. Oh, anyway it's not mine. The spirit-devouring flame was extremely strong, but even so, 500 star treasures still took an entire hour. Meng Ta and the rest all had joyous faces. The current spirit value of their spirit-devouring flame was already over 160 points, and the lowest was over 110 points. Meng Ta's hands were also trembling. He muttered to himself with a trembling voice, calm down, for someone like me who has seen the world, how can I be so ugly? Isn't it just a pile of spirit treasures? How many lives have I not seen spirit treasures? Damn it. Don't tell me I have already died and reached heaven. So that's how it is. Tang Tian was overjoyed. It was obvious. After hearing Yisho Xian's words, the silver-lined heavy shield had a great history and was not ordinary. Meng Ta said angrily, 80 spirit value, the star treasures are all used up. All of the treasures, that gorgeous light aura, all sorts of different undulations. If fighting strength could be expressed in numbers, then Meng Ta and the rest of the saints' numbers would be jumping crazily, a patch of blood red. Meng Ta and the rest's eyes were all red. Even Yisho Xian, who was always indifferent, had his mouth wide open, a face full of disbelief as he looked at the small mountain of treasures in front of him. Tang Tian's eyes opened wide, his eyebrows knitted together, his face full of displeasure. Bronze Saint? Humph, are you looking down on us? A saint's face suddenly flushed red, his face as red as a ripe persimmon. He muttered with a face full of fear. Am I poisoned? Such an illusion can appear, so many spirit treasures, is this a heart demon? So scary. This. How many are there? Only then did everyone reveal a look of realization. Very powerful. Tang Tian rubbed his chin, deep in thought. All used up. Not a single one left. In Yisho Xian's eyes suddenly appeared the scene of the saints, their entire body covered in treasures, appearing majestically. Yisho Xian saw that Tang Tian still did not understand and explained. The silver-lined heavy shield is a rather famous spirit treasure. About 6,000 years ago, there was a group of saints, called Saint Shield. They were the most proficient in refining and using shield-type spirit treasures. The silver-lined heavy shield was their most famous spirit treasure, and was also their standard equipment. It was shaped like a leaf, extremely exquisite. The surface of the shield was big but not thick, and was extremely heavy. The silver-lined heavy shield, the world's most famous, it is something that all the shield saints dream of. Although I have heard of it, but I have never seen the real thing, I never thought that I would be able to see it today. It has been preserved for 6,000 years, and is still as good as new. It is truly powerful. The surroundings became quiet, even the sound of a needle dropping on the floor could be heard. Sigh, everyone could not help but take in a breath of cold air. This treasure mountain was over 15 m tall, all sorts of light auras were flickering, causing everyone to be dazzled. Chapter 5:36. Holding onto the red lotus umbrella, the group of people did not slow down at all, bringing forth a gigantic fiery red afterimage, whistling as they rushed towards Tang Tian and the rest. Asshole! Damn it! 43 independent saints, in the eyes of the official bronze saints of the temple, were just a group of cannon fodder. Even Su Yi, who was always cautious, felt the same. The group of independent saints, compared to them, was like a group of beggars and an official army. Humph, as expected, armies are unreliable. One of the saints snorted. I wonder when Master Qinli will be able to break through to the Gold Saint realm. Master Qinli is hailed as the person with the most hope of breaking through to the Gold Saint realm. The triangular dart was engraved with many graceful arcs. These arcs were all different, intertwined and chased each other. Each arc seemed to have a natural meaning, and at the very front of these arcs, which was also the sharpest corner, a star seemed to be faintly discernible. That's mine. He calmed down. The aura cover was a defensive spirit treasure with a spirit value of 160 points. It was his life-saving treasure. And the aura cover had a mystical ability. Once the opponent's spirit technique neared, it would be like a magnet, producing a strong repulsive force, and the person and the cover would be pushed away. The fiery rain struck his red lotus umbrella, and a smile surfaced on his face. The highest record among the bronze saints of the temple was a bronze saint, who had killed 16 bronze-ranked independent saints in one battle. Such a disparity was naturally not normal, but for a bronze saint of the temple to deal with 3 to 5 independent saints, that was extremely normal. In the temple, contribution points and spirit value were equal. 100 contribution points could be exchanged for 100 spirit value spirit treasures, spirit techniques, or other items. The other saints did not have the mood to discuss other matters. All of their faces were gloomy, and they increased their speed. Betrayal. He was determined to complete the mission beautifully. He wanted the entire Heaven's Road to kneel and tremble in front of the temple. A group of independent saints dared to be enemies with the temple. A newly risen upstart dared to overestimate themselves and challenge the authority of the temple. It was a joke. Only fresh blood could wake them up and make them realize what a stupid mistake they had made. Countless tongues of flame surged out from his body and gathered in front of him in a spiral shape, turning into a red umbrella with a diameter of over 100 feet. He roared silently in his heart. When Little Fool saw the power of the distant triangular star dart, the corner of his eyes twitched. His heart felt like it had been ripped open and blood was flowing out. In his mind, he thought of a legendary treasure. The 2 fireballs hit the Aurora shield, but what he didn't expect was that the Aurora shield didn't break. The 2 transparent fireballs stuck to the Aurora shield and kept burning. The rain of fire was like falling on thin paper, instantly piercing through his red lotus umbrella. He, who was holding the red lotus umbrella and sprinting forward, did not expect this result. Before he could react, 2 balls of flames flew in front of him. Nonsense. Lord Lan Dongyi is the most promising. Lord Dongyi's understanding of the laws has far surpassed the level of a silver saint. Su Yi's spirit value had already reached 446 points. His fighting standard was extremely high and had repeatedly defeated saints with higher spirit value than him. Adding that he had a good temper, he had good relations with people, and was extremely famous among the bronze saints of Temple. Temple viewed the mission with great importance and sent Su Yi out. Distant triangular star dart is truly as sharp as the legends say. Let me do it. A member shouted excitedly. He suddenly increased his speed and rushed to the front of the group. Seems like the army was not suitable for the martial group. Without a military general grooming system, Su Yi was not surprised by the result. But the earlier they tried, the earlier they failed, the better, to prevent some people from having unrealistic fantasies. 2 holes were burned in the Aurora shield, and they were growing bigger at an alarming rate. In the sky, a black dot whizzed past. Everyone immediately cheered. Little Fool's fists were clenched so tightly that they turned white. His chest was filled with an unresolvable killing intent. The current Little Fool was like an extremely dry barrel of gunpowder, and even a small spark could cause him to explode. The additional contribution points did not make them happy, and all of their faces were ugly. They all knew how serious the betrayal was. He was already prepared to be knocked out. Suddenly, his holy light plate trembled. All of those legendary spirit treasures, even Little Fool's eyes were red from seeing them, his heart twitching in pain. Every single one of them was a legend. His gaze exploded, he took a deep breath and bellowed, "Kill!" But the strength of the gold-ranked armies were truly terrible. Furthermore, the one leading them was Su Yi. Old He's face did not relax at all, his face was gloomy. The Light Blade Army has collectively betrayed us. Commander Yishou Exen, Vice Commander Mo Lei, have already activated the Trial of Light. Your mission has changed. Other than the previous mission, you still need to destroy the entire Light Blade Army. Not a single one is left alive. Yishou Exen and Mo Lei, bring them back to the martial group and imprison them in the Sin Pillar Court, let them wail for days and nights, and warn the martial artists in the martial group that are degenerating by the day. Everyone who had been waiting for a long time moved out. Old He's face was filled with killing intent. Finish it quickly and return to temple. Next week is Master Qin Li's training ground. If we miss it, it will be a pity. A saint shouted. A rain of fire shot out. All of the flames were only the size of a fist and were translucent. The enemy's reaction was seen by Su Yi. They were all waiting for him. That's right, what gold-ranked army, what's the use? At the crucial moment, they dropped the ball and still need us to clean up their mess. Another bronze saint said unhappily. Such a shameful word, to actually be related to the Honorable Martial Alliance, and furthermore, it was a gold-ranked army. It was a huge blow to the reputation of the Honorable Martial Alliance. The mission this time was probably the easiest 100 contribution points mission in history. Everyone's heart trembled, and they all bowed in respect. 100 contribution points was definitely a generous reward. It was not easy to receive such a mission in temple, and even if there was one, it would be extremely dangerous. More and more people joined in the discussion. They were obviously more interested in the question. The temple saint who grew like that, compared to the independent saints, was much stronger. According to what you said, that Master Dong Yi is already a gold-ranked saint. The contribution points for this mission will be increased by 50 points. The gigantic umbrella protected everyone behind it. It was the spirit technique that he trained in, a defensive spirit technique with a spirit value of over 120 points. It was definitely powerful. Facing the opponent's attack head-on was his specialty. Chi. That was his last thought, before the boundless darkness engulfed him. Su Yi bellowed. He stood still, with a thought. A light screen appeared in front of him, and a dignified old man appeared on the light screen. Su Yi shook his head and laughed, but did not stop him. He was carefully thinking about the mission. He did so purely out of habit. Regardless of the battle, he would never underestimate his enemies. For the enemy to be able to alarm the temple, it was a reflection of their strength. Every month, there would be a silver-ranked saint who would give a sermon, explaining their understanding of laws, and by paying a certain amount of contribution points, they would be able to purchase an entrance ticket. And as long as one was slightly more diligent and completed a few missions to earn contribution points, one could buy anything in the temple. If one had enough contribution points, they could even rent a star powerhouse and derive spirit techniques. That was close. The independent saints' training was extremely poor. They had no money to buy spirit technique cards, no money to buy spirit treasures, no money to buy spirit nourishing treasures. They were extremely poor. But immediately after, his smile froze on his face. Tang Tian did not notice Little Fool's change. His attention was completely focused on the incoming saints. His attention was extremely focused. He knew that in this battle, if they were to be careless, the entire army would be wiped out. Su Yi's eyes were filled with awe. Everyone's speed increased. Like sharp swords, they pierced through the sky. In the middle of the group, there was a man who was in high spirits, his long hair fluttering in the wind. He laughed. Our contributions will definitely not be small. Before we set off, I specially asked around. If we complete the mission, we will receive 100 contribution points. After flying for half a day, a member suddenly shouted, "They are in front." Other than that, the free spirit technique cards provided by the temple could be summarized into a thick list. He stretched out his arms and suddenly clasped them together, and bellowed, "Red Lotus Umbrella." Su Yi and the rest's faces changed. Betrayal was something that rarely happened within the Honorable Martial Alliance, and an army group betrayal was something that had never happened before. Everyone was roused. Su Yi squinted his eyes and bellowed, "Charge!" And for the saints of the temple, once they had the qualifications to become a bronze saint, the temple would give them a spirit treasure with a spirit value of 100 points. Just this point was enough to make the poor people's eyes turn green with envy. To the martial group, having the temple was enough. Old He added coldly, and then cut off the connection. "Don't bullshit, increase the speed." Su Yi's face was gloomy, without a hint of a smile, his entire body releasing a terrifying killing intent. Su Yi's eyes turned cold, so what if they were prepared? With the absolute difference in strength, the so-called willpower was just a beautiful joke. Autumn leaf spear, sky wheel, swan black mirror, distant triangle star dart. Old He. What a waste. To be able to enter Gui Wu's eyes, how could it be ordinary? Such a treasure was actually given to a group of cannon fodder that did not even have a spirit value of over 200 points. Furthermore, every single one of them had more than one, all of them were of different colors, dazzling to the eye, causing Little Fool's heart to burn even more, as though countless of monsters were roaring and wreaking havoc. Su Yi believed without a doubt. His face changed. In a moment of desperation, he activated his life-saving spirit treasure, Aurora Cover. A layer of dazzling aurora-like energy shield protected him so tightly that not even a drop of water could leak through. Stop! Spirit value was everything to a saint. As expected, it was as sharp as the legends. "Captain Su, this time it is such a big battle. If we win, the credit should not be small, right?" The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with white skin. He had a mischievous smile on his face. "Not a single one of you will be able to escape." Tang Tian and the rest were already waiting for them. Little Fool's face was black. He floated behind Tang Tian. He was focused on searching for the ancient records. He never thought that the fool would actually give so many good things to the group of cannon fodder. Everyone's heart trembled and loudly replied, "Yes." His chest suddenly felt pain. His expression froze on his face. He lowered his head and looked at his chest. A triangular dart had pierced into his chest. The sharp energy suddenly rushed into his body. "This is..." Little Fool turned his head, his handsome and exquisite face. His killing intent was so dense that it was about to flow out. Chapter 537. The silver-lined heavy shield and the distant triangle meteor dart appearing at the same time, he felt that the possibility was. Stop joking. In the blink of an eye, the opponent's formation had transformed into a cone shape, and at the very front of the cone was the man holding the shield. Until today, they had thought of all sorts of possibilities, but none of them could be blocked by the opponent, so when they rushed to the front of the formation, they could not believe their eyes. The powerful shockwaves swept out like a hurricane. The saints who were close by felt as though they were struggling in a torrential downpour, unable to stabilize themselves. All of them were overwhelmed with shock. Su Yi's assault was not just a single spirit technique. It was a fusion of glimmer, S-power, and flowing light, S-speed, an original attack technique. The ear-deafening explosion directly exploded on the shield. Tang Tian's eardrums were buzzing. He was completely unable to hear his own roars. At the moment of life and death, he was like a wild beast on the verge of death, struggling frantically. The silver-lined heavy shield trembled intensely. Tang Tian held onto the back of the shield tightly, his face completely distorted. Tang Tian only felt an unstoppable force surging from the shield. The strong force almost caused him to let go. In that moment, his body instinctively reacted. He bent his waist like lightning, his shoulders pressing against the shield's body. Originally holding the shield with two hands, he hugged it with both arms. His entire person was like a raging bull, pressing against the shield's body. Brilliant scorching sun. The spear in that fellow's hand had a strange shape. It looked like pieces of withered leaves wrapping around the spear body, looking extremely ugly. From its appearance, it looked like the legendary autumn leaf spear. Su Yi's mind trembled. Su Yi's powerful strength was displayed without a doubt. Even with such high speed, he was still as agile as a fish, shuttling through the rain of fire. Although 5 of them were hit by the spirit-devouring flame, the remaining saints all rushed through the rain of fire. The spirit treasure in the enemy's hand was even weirder. It was a green whip. The tail of the whip was like a green hair. No matter how he remembered it being described before, it was similar to the legendary green pubescent hair. Su Yi's heart trembled once again. The way Su Yi looked at Tang Tian was like he was looking at a monster, even if the monster's actions were extremely laughable. As for the saints who had worked together with Su Yi before, their chests were even more agitated. Every time Su Yi's ferocious attack appeared on the battlefield, it would definitely be destroyed. Damn it. Su Yi sneered. Suddenly, his gaze congealed. A man holding a shield pierced through the entire line of defense, going against the retreating tide, rushing into the formation, and at the same time, the two wings quickly retracted, moving closer to the center. Silver-lined heavy shield. Even Meng Ta and the rest who were behind Tang Tian were shocked by Su Yi's attack, and all of their faces changed. They had never seen such a domineering and sharp slash. They even felt that this slash was enough to split their team in two. Glimmer itself did not have any attack power, but to be able to be ranked as one of the strongest bronze spirit techniques in the Honorable Martial Alliance was because it could ignite true power. The true power that was combusted would multiply in power, and even the simplest attack would be filled with astonishing power. Su Yi and the rest were burning with anger. They had always been the ones ambushing others. When had they ever suffered such a huge loss? Su Yi's face was filled with killing intent. He hissed, his body slightly increasing in size, releasing a dazzling light aura, as though he was a god of war. His speed suddenly increased, tearing through the sky. Like an astonishing light sword, he brazenly slashed towards the enemy formation. The enemies in front of him retreated like a tide. They were blocked. Su Yi subconsciously swept his gaze across. Tang Tian was also shocked by Su Yi's attack. Such a fast speed. How did they have such a treasure? The legendary silver-lined heavy shield. On the contrary, Meng Ta and the rest who were initially stunned by Su Yi's overlord blade, personally witnessing Tang Tian blocking such a terrifying and peerless attack, they were in disbelief. Their blood was boiling, and they entered an unprecedented fanaticism. The scorching sun broke through the sky. The dazzling light quickly swept past. In the midst of the dazzling light, Su Yi raised his palm up high, like an overlord raising his blade. A few of the saints who were preparing to use their energy barriers to block the attack shuddered, and immediately twisted their bodies. Su Yi suddenly thought about the flash of the triangular dart that shot out like a shooting star. Another legendary name flashed into his mind like lightning, causing his mind to tremble once again. The enemies at the side seemed to have something revolving around them. Su Yi's eyes were extremely sharp and immediately noticed that it was a blue transparent flywheel, so it was difficult to detect. For some reason, Su Yi thought about another famous treasure, Sky Wheel, and his mind trembled again. Distant triangle star dart. The temple saints' fighting intent was completely stirred up by Su Yi's tyrannical and unreasonable attack. They had long heard of Su Yi's name, but it was the first time for many of them to work together with Su Yi, and personally witnessing it, all of them felt their blood vessels surging. The low morale from the sudden attack of the rain of fire immediately shot up. They were equally shocked, but the morale of both parties had undergone a complete change. Especially when Su Yi and the rest were still increasing their speed. The battle record also proved the Silver Senior's evaluation. Ever since Overlord's execution was created, it had never been blocked by anyone before. He had just rushed to the front of the formation. When the opponent had already rushed in front of him, the speed was so fast that he was unable to see it clearly. He only felt a burst of tyrannical aura crashing down. The glaring ball of light suddenly exploded. The fastest to react was Su Yi. He had already noticed the scene of the spirit-devouring flame burning the energy barrier. His face changed, and he shouted, "Dodge the flames." Everything happened too quickly, to the point that he did not even have time to think. The thin silver shield, in front of the tyrannical light aura, looked extremely weak, so weak that no one doubted, as long as the light pillar touched the silver shield would be destroyed like a piece of paper. The saints of the temple were all prepared to take the chance to kill. They were certain that Su Yi's attack would definitely be like a hot knife through butter, and would scatter the enemy formation. Bang! but the position of the spirit-devouring flame was meticulously arranged, for the sake of giving the enemy a show of strength. Tang Tian made everyone's spirit-devouring flame line up very closely and did not give them much space to dodge. And flowing light was Su Yi's main flying spirit technique. It was as fast as flowing light, with unparalleled agility. Su Yi realized in his training there were many techniques in flowing light that were extremely beneficial to the convergence of power. Using the power contained in the high-speed attack and fusing with glimmer, it allowed the blade aura to have a qualitative flying path. The cone formation was usually used for charging, and the martial artist at the tip of the cone formation was definitely the strongest person in the entire formation, and only with the sharpest spear tip, the cone formation would be able to pierce through the enemy's defense. How? How is that possible? Tang Tian did not even have time to think, and instinctively grabbed onto the silver-lined heavy shield. Su Yi's true power surged, the light aura became even more dazzling. He also trained in glimmer, but his realm was much higher than Yi Zhaoge. All of the light aura congealed on his body. The glimmer was like needles, dazzling to the eyes. His entire body was enveloped by the light aura, and could not be seen. He was like a dazzling sun. The tyrannical glimmer in Su Yi's hands was actually releasing an indescribable tyrannical and ferocious aura. Tang Tian's entire body tensed up, his eyes were red, and he roared like a wild beast. The light aura dissipated. Su Yi could not believe his own eyes. No one was clearer than him on the destructive power of the Overlord's punishment. If it was measured by spirit value, the spirit value of the Overlord's punishment was definitely over 400 points. Even the Silver Seniors were full of praises for his technique, and said that it was a technique that no one below the silver level could block. His gaze subconsciously swept past the other enemies. Overlord's punishment. Su Yi waved his palm. The light aura brought about a scalp-numbing low rumble, heavily striking onto the silver shield. This was an attack that belonged solely to him, and this technique had an extremely tyrannical name. The red lotus umbrella was easily pierced through, causing the temple saints to be caught off guard, and immediately, 3 of them were struck by the spirit-devouring flame. At the start, they did not think much of it. The spirit-devouring flame's deceptive appearance caused them to underestimate its destructive power. The infamous distant triangle star dart. Little Fool's heart trembled, but from the corner of his eyes he saw the fear on Meng Ta and the rest's faces. The disdain in his heart turned into rage. These legendary treasures, to hand them over to trash, it was a humiliation to the legends, it was a disrespect to the ancestors, it was... Tang Tian was stunned, his mind was blank, his entire body was congested with blood, his body was as red as a cooked prawn, as though he was drunk. Hugging the silver-lined heavy shield, he spun around in a daze. Their blood was boiling as they followed the sharp slash aura to the front of the formation, but they were shocked to realize that the opponent had blocked it. But the opponent was defending. He remembered that the distant triangle star dart was shot out from an ordinary-looking enemy's hand. Impossible. He immediately denied his guess. If it was only the silver-lined heavy shield, he would still think that it was possible. The silver-lined heavy shield that was known to be indestructible by spirit techniques below the gold rank. Thinking of retreating at this time? Too naive. Furthermore, Su Yi could even see that the 2 wings that were tightened were like 2 blades. Upon blocking their attack, they would shoot out. His mind was no longer shaken, he was dumbstruck. Su Yi stared blankly at the silver shield in Tang Tian's hand, the extremely fine patterns on it, and the silver light that was flickering on the shield body was extremely thin. A legendary name appeared in his mind, his pupils suddenly constricted, his heart jumping crazily. But, you want to block my attack? Heh, I don't know where you guys get your confidence from. They rushed into the rain of fire, their speed was already raised to the limit, and it was difficult for them to dodge. Chi, another 2 people were struck by the spirit-devouring flame. Su Yi immediately understood the opponent's thoughts. To place the strongest defense at the tip of the awl, like that, they could naturally form a fan-shaped defensive zone, protecting everyone. This was an extremely good idea. In theory, as long as the person at the front had sufficient defense, he could completely rely on his own strength to protect everyone. Everyone looked at Tang Tian in disbelief, who was hugging the silver shield, as though he was drunk, slowly spinning around in his original position. Chapter 5:38. If the fool died, he would not be able to live either. If it was another person, he would definitely be frightened by the formation. Such a naive fellow, it would be a pity if he died. Are they still independent saints? Are they still the cowardly and undisciplined independent saints? Fist Saint's face changed, his true power surged, wanting to expel the flames, but no matter how much he urged his true power, the flames continued to burn downwards. Spirit-devouring flame. He was just a small figure, so small that he could not be any smaller, and was not worth buying. In this world, there was actually a group of people who were so passionate about imitating treasures. Xiu xiu xiu. If it was said that Tang Tian blocking his overlord's execution surprised him, then the bitter battle in front of him was even more out of his expectations. The opponent's true power was barging around in his body, destroying his life force. The situation was dire. Little Fool's eyes suddenly lit up with a demonic light aura. Both of his palms pressed down in the air, the dazzling light beam transformed into a gigantic chessboard. You finally moved. They are the spirit-devouring blood group. His mouth twitched with difficulty. For some reason, he thought about how Tang Tian had taken out a mountain of treasures, and said, I should have brought more. He thought about how Tang Tian had stuffed the swan black mirror into his hands, and how he was so excited that he was trembling. You think I will sell my life for you just like that? So naive. Even though they were already flying out, the independent saints still disregarded everything and threw out all the spirit treasures in their hands, their final spirit techniques. Such determination to fight made Su Yi almost think that he had met with the guards of some constellation. He took a deep breath. His experienced face was extremely focused, his eyes became extremely determined, the true power in his body was completely sucked out and poured into his spirit domain. Protect Master. It drew a perfect arc and quietly flew to Fist Saint's back. Su Yi shuddered. He looked at Tang Tian and the rest. His gaze instantly became bone-chilling. Little Fool scolded in his heart. He knew that Tang Tian was in a bad situation. At this time, he only needed the weakest spirit technique, and it would be enough to kill the fool. Tang Tian's entire body was congested with blood. His skin was as red as a cooked prawn. He had not recovered from the attack. Soul-devouring blood group. Zheng Yu was one of them. He was passionate about treasure hunting and was an expert in I-type spirit techniques. He was good at escaping, but his fighting strength was extremely low. In the confrontation between the two sides, he was the first to be injured. He was fighting a Fist Saint, and the opponent's moves contained immense power. His spirit technique was like a mantis trying to stop a car, and was instantly shattered. Die all of you. He mocked himself in his heart. He was passionate about treasure hunting. How could he not know the value of the swan mirror? He was used to roaming the Jianghu, he was used to seeing people deceiving each other, he had long since become sophisticated and slippery, but at that moment he was somewhat shaken. At this time, the saints who were affected by the spirit-devouring flame also realized that the situation was not good. The flame was actually devouring their spirit domains. The soul-devouring blood group had actually risen from the ashes. What a good-for-nothing, according to the original plan, Erwo should have retreated at this time, and the others should have attacked from both sides. However, Erwo didn't move at all, which immediately became their biggest flaw. Tang Tian, who had lost his ability to fight, was undoubtedly the best target. To the experienced saints of the temple, if they could not even see this, they would be derelict in their duties. The light beam chessboard quickly lit up one after another with black chess pieces. Little Fool's 10 fingers moved continuously. In the sky behind the opponent, a spirit-devouring flame quietly floated in the air, like a cherry blossom being blown by the wind. It floated up silently. His left shoulder suddenly felt a slight pain. He turned his head, and a fist-sized flame laid on his shoulder, and then quickly seeped into his body. Su Yi, who was watching from afar, congealed. They truly know how to buy people's hearts. The saints of the temple were all extremely experienced. Upon seeing Tang Tian's blank expression, they immediately saw Tang Tian as the breakthrough point. Su Yi's battle tactics were simple and clean. Before his attack was successful, he would borrow the force and pull apart the distance like lightning, not even giving the opponent a chance to sneak attack. Hearing those words, Su Yi's face changed. Alright, this treasure is enough to buy my cheap life. Tang Tian's form spirit was powerless to stop them, and both parties directly clashed. Since the battle had reached this stage, Su Yi thought that they had already won. A group of independent saints with an average spirit value of less than 100 points, in such a close combat, to meet a temple bronze saint with the lowest spirit value of 300 points, Su Yi could not think of any way for the opponent to turn the tables. The black sword aura flowed and coiled around the void dark flames. Like raindrops, it sealed the space in front of Tang Tian. Fist Saint seemed to have sensed something. He suddenly turned and waved his fist. Bang! The surging true power surged out. His face changed. He did not hit anything. In such a fierce and direct collision, they were all injured the moment they met. To the temple, the spirit-devouring blood group was definitely a taboo. Su Yi knew that in the past, the temple had paid a huge price for this name. His body was trembling uncontrollably. It was a sign of exhaustion. His expression was blank as he floated in his original position. The remaining true power in his body was doing its best to defend against the destruction of the enemy's true power, protecting his life. At that time, he was still muttering in his heart, but his hands were tightly holding onto the swan black mirror. It was the best spirit treasure he had ever touched. It was a treasure that he had never dared to think about in his entire life. At that moment, he felt that even if he died, it would be worth it. I'm going to lose money. Half of these bronze saints had defensive spirit techniques that had a spirit value of over 100 points. They took the initiative to rush forward. The sword auras that fused with the void dark flames struck their energy barriers, only causing ripples. Su Yi could not believe his own eyes. Little Fool's face turned cold, his expression becoming extremely solemn, his hands and fingers slowly moving. One after another, all the treasures that had appeared in history caused Su Yi to be dumbstruck, but at the same time, it calmed his heart down. If there were only one or two, he would still think that it was the opponent's luck. But when all the treasures appeared, he actually did not know whether to laugh or cry. In truth, it was not that he had never met such people before. In the past, there was a spirit treasure master who was extremely passionate about imitating famous treasures. From what he knew, there were even a few experts who could imitate the treasures to be 70 to 80% similar. There was once an auction, and there was a mistake. The treasure that was bought at a high price was actually a fake, and even the experienced appraisers of the auction house did not discover it. The few people who had just rushed out were like beasts crashing into their heads and immediately flew back. They did not even have the time to release their spirit techniques. The disparity between the two parties was too big. He even had the leisure to think. Bang bang bang. Su Yi's eyes revealed a look of admiration. He activated Glimmer again. The true power in his body combusted frantically, and his figure suddenly disappeared in the air. It was said that Tang Tian trained in the form spirit, but who knew that his fleshly body would be so strong to actually be able to block the Overlord beheading? It was truly inconceivable. Su Yi's eyes lit up. Although the power of the spirit technique used by Tang Tian's form spirit was small, but it was extremely ingenious and had huge potential. An extremely outstanding spirit technique. As for the other saints, their reactions were much slower. They flocked forward. Even the saints who were touched by the spirit-devouring flame did not sense the power of the spirit-devouring flame and rushed forward ferociously. His face finally completely changed. The opponent had brazenly rushed out from the rain of swords. At that time, he was thinking, such a good treasure, to actually give it away like that, why is he so stupid? But to the bronze saints of the temple, the current, graceful sword was still lacking in killing power. I hate fighting the most. So painful. Little Fool who was hiding behind Tang Tian, his eyes lit up with a dense light aura at the same time. He remembered that he was laughing at those people who were crying, and at most his nose would be a little sore. The world in his eyes was already cold and cruel. He had seen too many people, for the sake of an ordinary spirit treasure, a spirit technique card, underhanded means, cheating, extorting, they were all unscrupulous. Almost at the same time, he appeared in front of Tang Tian. His raised palm was wrapped with extremely dense light thorns, like a death-light blade. Zheng Yu mocked himself in his heart. In his black vision, the enemy's weakness was clear and unmistakable. He turned his face sinisterly. The frail figure flying in the distance had already fainted. His sharp and skinny face had an indescribable satisfaction. He lost control of his body and fell down. Damn it! Oh my God, it's the spirit-devouring flame. Save me. Quickly save me. But the following scene caused Su Yi to be shocked. At that time, no one was thinking about any tactics, no one was thinking about the future, everyone only had one thought in their minds. Among them, many of them only had a spirit value of 40 or 50 points, which was at least 300 points lower than the bronze saints of the temple. The disparity between the two parties was an insurmountable gap. At the same time, Meng Ta and the rest awoke from their stupor. Whoosh, they rushed out from both sides like a tide, blocking in front of Tang Tian. They did not engage in guerrilla warfare, but like a fence, they protected Tang Tian in the middle. He had heard of some rumors about Tang Tian, and even knew that Tang Tian had caused a lot of trouble for the Honorable Martial Alliance, but to Su Yi, it was not a big deal. The saints of the temple did not care about worldly affairs. The worldly affairs were all handled by the Honorable Martial Alliance. If there were no troubles, why would they raise so many trash? Little Fool's face changed. The fool was beaten senseless, and stood there motionless. Time seemed to have slowed down at that moment. As he expected, the moment they clashed, the opponents were thrown off their feet, and a few of them were instantly sent flying. His mind was blank. The power of the Overlord's execution was too great, and it was not something he could withstand at his current stage. Although he blocked it, but the opponent's power had already seeped into his body. Borrowing the recoil, Su Yi once again pulled away. His gaze landed on the young man holding the shield. This young man should be Tang Tian, Su Yi thought. In truth, up until now, the one who surprised him the most was Tang Tian. He truly knows how to buy people's hearts. The swan-black spectacles that he was wearing suddenly lit up with a black light aura. The chaotic battlefield suddenly became simple and clear. The opponent's flaws were all revealed to him. Panicked screams rang out from the mouths of the iron-blooded saints, their faces filled with despair and fear. The unremarkable flames had seeped into their bodies, and were frantically devouring their spirit domains. He flew out, seeing the opponent getting further and further away, but the contempt and disdain on the opponent's face was extremely clear in his eyes. Chapter 539. A crazy, reckless roar resonated in the young man's heart. Su Yi's face flashed a look of disdain, a final struggle. He had already seen the power of graceful sword. The spirit value was definitely not over 100 points, such a thing. How could it block his attack? I did not forget. I will never retreat. Never cowardly. Never depressed. Go and die. He raised his finger and tapped on Tang Tian's forehead. Did you forget? Retreating? Cowardly? Was he depressed? Are you going to surrender? As though deep in the earth's core, there was a terrifying energy brewing. You said it before, you are a godlike young man. So happy, under the starry sky, the young man's face was covered in tears, muttering to himself. Yaya scratched his head, with a face of distress. He taught him spiraling energy. Su Yi's sinister smile was so clear, he raised his left palm, a light aura flickering. Am I going to die here? Little Fool thought helplessly. The current him was already close to the edge of annihilation. The martial spirit little person was confused. He gradually had an idea. He formed a halo around him, continuously spinning. This way he could follow it. Suddenly, a light net like a chessboard suddenly appeared in front of Tang Tian. Heh, you also have the determination to die? You said before, you want to fight alongside them. I still haven't reunited with Qian Hui. I still haven't realized my dream, I still haven't fulfilled my promise, I still have many mysteries that I haven't uncovered, I still have too many doubts in my heart, I still have an incomparable curiosity towards this world, and I still have an undying passion. I don't want to die here, absolute. Throw. The two of them looked at each other in a daze. The light aura of the swallowing light steel fist, in front of the spirit value over 200 points of glimmer slash, was as weak as paper, not even able to block for a second before being annihilated. All of the blade aura entered Yaya's body. The incessant explosion sounded. Tang Tian's body was like boiling water, constantly swelling up and disappearing. It was just a bud spirit general, it did not have any value, what use was it? He was such a noble spirit, to have to deal with a bud spirit general every day, how annoying. Friendship with a bud spirit general, how laughable. His handsome face was ferocious and crazed. He raised his left palm. Su Yi appeared over 30 m away, his right arm was gone, his right shoulder had a terrifying wound, blood flowed out continuously, his clothes were soaked in blood. Even if it meant death. Have you forgotten? Did he flinch? Was he a coward? Was he depressed? Were they going to surrender? Boom. Su Yi slashed down heavily, the blade aura whistling towards little fool who had lost control. He was so happy. But why was she so sad? Suddenly, the scene of Yaya's little face filled with fear appeared in his mind, but it still raised its little fist and rushed towards the glimmering sword gleam. It must have been very scared. Su Yi's face was as white as paper. A stern look flashed past his eyes. He suddenly raised his left palm and chopped down towards his right shoulder. He used all the strength he could muster to speak to himself, one word at a time. Soul-devouring flame. Countless scenes flashed past, countless faces flashed past, and countless oaths surged in his heart. Yaya's chubby little face was filled with fear, but its little fist suddenly absorbed all the light auras around it. Swallowing light steel fist. Every muscle in Tang Tian's body was trembling, his body was boiling hot, his blood was burning, his ears were ringing, it was filled with his crazed and hysterical roars. He always felt annoyed in his heart, he felt helpless, he ate the star rocks just to prevent Yaya from bothering him. Chia, don't worry. I will definitely find you. Why was he so sad? A heart-wrenching scream resonated throughout the entire battlefield. Su Yi's figure flashed and disappeared from the light net. His right arm stopped at its original position. After a moment, a flame suddenly emerged from the broken arm, and in a blink of an eye, it enveloped the entire broken arm, and after a few seconds, the broken arm turned into ashes. In the boiling hot world, Tang Tian's self-questioning reverberated endlessly. Su Yi, who had suddenly appeared in front of Tang Tian, slashed down with his palm. His left palm slashed down frantically, countless blade auras whistled towards little fool. Su Yi's face was pale white, he stared at little fool like a wild beast. It was not easy to get here, how can I give up? It was not easy to get here. It was not easy. Yaya will play with me. Little fool stared blankly at Yaya's previous position, it was as though his soul had been sucked out, countless blurry images appeared in front of his eyes. The light aura entered between Tang Tian's eyebrows, and Tang Tian's body suddenly calmed down. The martial spirit little man was affected, he started to circle around Yaya, flying faster and faster. A figure suddenly appeared in front of the blade aura, little fool was startled, it was Yaya. A dazzling light aura blossomed from little fool's fingertip, entering between Tang Tian's eyebrows, little fool's body became even dimmer, he entered Tang Tian's body and disappeared. That was little fool's true killing technique. From the start of the battle until now, little fool had been preparing his killing technique. His spirit-devouring flame was the strongest attack out of everyone, and the only killing technique that could threaten Su Yi, so no matter how intense the battle between Meng Ta and the rest was, he restrained himself from using this technique. I will help you this once, for Yaya. No, it was trembling. Mumu's martial spirit little man, for the first time, had a ripple in his heart. He took the star rock and started eating it. Then he took out a spirit card and passed it to Yaya. Yaya beamed and ate it. The battle outside had reached its climax. There are so many resolute people waiting for me even in death. There are so many people who disregarded their lives and fought alongside me. There are so many people who looked up to me and entrusted their lives and futures to me. The sunshine never left me. Hope never left me. I have encountered so many beautiful things. They have accompanied me to this point. Looking at the cold and withered crooked figure, the young man clenched his fists tightly. Su-yi did not have any intention of changing his technique. His slash landed firmly on the light net. Little fool groaned, as though he was struck by a heavy blow. He flew out. Under the powerful force, Yaya's umbrella immediately crumbled, and little fool flew out fiercely. Mummy, little Tian has become very powerful. Did you see that? Die. The martial spirit little man understood something. I don't want to die here. Inside his body, something seemed to explode. The wooden martial spirit little man floated in the air. Squeaking sounds came out from behind Tang Tian. A lively bud spirit general jumped out. Seeing him, he was stunned. Is this happiness? Until he took over the little man's body, and everything changed. Su-yi revealed his teeth and laughed. Good. Very good. A form spirit actually destroyed one of my arms. The blood flowing in his veins was like lava flowing out of a volcano. It frantically seeped into his bones, his muscles, his skin. The power that caused people to tremble stimulated every single one of his nerves, causing his body to tremble uncontrollably. Yaya's chubby face was distorted, his wide eyes filled with fear. The dazzling needle-like light aura, penetrated through his skin, was extremely bewitching and terrifying. The spirit-devouring flame that had a spirit value of 260 points immediately coiled around Su-yi's right arm. Even the glimmer was unable to stop the spirit-devouring flame. Am I going to lose? Am I going to die? Am I going to die here? Yaya became even more happy and excited, beating the drum even more merrily. Little fool's figure flashed, a blade aura brushed past his body. The other blade aura had already flown in front of him. Little fool clenched his teeth and used the umbrella to block in front of him. The oppressive sound of thunder exploded out. Yaya disappeared from little fool's vision. The terrifying power caused it to not even leave an afterimage. Like a cannonball, it fiercely smashed into the ground, leaving behind a bottomless hole. The transparent flame wrapped around Su-yi's right arm, but strangely like mercury, it seeped into Su-yi's right arm. Senior Ghost Claw, I will definitely bring glory to your legacy. The two of them sat side by side on the mountain peak. The little boy looked at the little girl and said loudly, his vow carried with the wind, and traveled very far. Yaya's eyes shone with light. He took out a star rock from his body, and brought it to Mumu's martial spirit little person. The spirit-devouring flame that swallowed his right arm quietly floated in the air. Since it's like that then. Little fool turned his face and looked at Su-yi indifferently. His body suddenly disappeared from the air. As Su-yi expected, the chessboard light net crumbled, but what he did not expect was that countless of translucent flames gushed out from the crumbling light net and rolled back towards him. Su-yi, who was caught off guard, was immediately hit. Don't. You were the one who said all of that. Pa. Little fool's body was slightly translucent, his delicate face was pale white. He stared at Su-yi coldly. Whoosh, an umbrella appeared in his hands. The energy in his body was already unable to activate the spirit-devouring flame. Continuous explosions could be heard from his body, as if beans were being fried. His body was trembling violently. Every explosion, a small bump would appear on Tang Tian's body, as though something was exploding inside his body. No. Yaya would run over daily to fawn on him, babbling to the point that he was annoyed, and every time he would take out the star rock and place it in front of him, babbling and gesturing. Only when he ate the star rock would Yaya be happy. Little fool screamed his lungs out. Ah! You said before, you want to give them a big constellation. Graceful sword. He was waiting for Su-yi. The lock has already loosened? This is truly shocking. I have suffered so much, I have been ridiculed, I have shed countless of sweat, I have passed through the smoke, stepped on the dirt, covered with cuts and bruises, To reach here. Tangtang, you said it before. The incessant sonic booms disappeared. Suddenly, he felt something, he turned his head, and looked at Tang Tian with an explosive gaze. Little Fool appeared in front of Tang Tian. He looked at Tang Tian with a complicated expression, and muttered softly, "You are actually able to reach this step. It is truly surprising. Your dedication to victory, has it reached such a stage? Even in such a hopeless situation, you are still not willing to give up? How can I die here? How can I? You said before, you want to find Xie." Tang Tian's ears were buzzing. He could not hear anything. Everything in front of him was white. He could not see anything. His entire body was burning hot. Blood had seeped into his muscles. It was as though his entire body was filled with flames. He did not have any other senses. He could not even move a finger. Little Fool looked at Sui expressionlessly. He wanted to kill him. Yaya excitedly started to beat the drum. "Yeah. Heh? You are also not satisfied." Chapter 540. Putting down the silver-lined heavy shield, Tang Tian's face appeared in Su Yi's vision. He could not help but be startled. That pair of eyes. Bang! Su Yi's face changed. Without thinking, he raised his energy barrier. There must be a demon in this abnormal situation. But it actually appeared on the same person. A fist wrapped in flames, smashed onto his energy barrier. Have you forgotten? Are you retreating? Are you afraid? Are you depressed? Are you going to surrender? Both sides of the intense battle stopped at the same time. Everyone's faces were filled with bewilderment. It was too quiet. This kind of unusual silence appeared in the midst of the intense battlefield. It was indescribably strange. The battlefield should be filled with chaotic energy flows, the airflow wreaking havoc, but suddenly it was so quiet, so peaceful, it caused one's hair to stand. The surging blade aura was like a raging wave crashing into a reef, exploding into pieces, the broken aura splattering everywhere. These three words struck into Tang Tian's mind like lightning, as though he was born with these three words. Tang Tian's vision was filled with white, as though he was in the eye of the storm. His ears were filled with roars and howls. Suddenly, Tang Tian noticed, the devil flame was actually sucked into the blood furnace. The blood light aura of the blood furnace became even more intense and dense. He suddenly realized, unknowingly, Little Fool was curled up inside the crystal clear blue energy furnace. He was in deep sleep. Little Fool's pale face caused Tang Tian to immediately wake up from his daze. The battle just now surfaced in his mind. Suddenly, Su Yi thought about the information regarding Tang Tian. Until now, Tang Tian's background was still a mystery. Tang Tian's background could only be traced back to Star Wind City. Tang Tian's mother had already passed away. His background was unknown, and no one knew who his father was. And the talent that Tang Tian displayed in Andrew Academy was not anything special. Compared to that, a Maori and the rest who were left far behind by Tang Tian, their talent far surpassed his. Gemini Furnace. Su Yi's pupils constricted, his heart trembled, his eyes were actually gold. Suddenly, his vision darkened. A silver shield occupied his entire field of vision. The intricate patterns on the surface of the shield were extremely clear to him. Again and again, Su Yi's pupils dilated. He could not believe his own eyes. Impossible. I want to fight. I want to win. It was as if there was a ball of fire burning in his heart. As if sensing this flame, the blood light from the blood cauldron became even more intense. The fresh blood that flowed out from the blood furnace was like boiling lava, causing his entire body to tremble uncontrollably. He gritted his teeth, and his figure suddenly disappeared. Su Yi felt that the qi in the center of the storm was becoming more and more terrifying, as though a monster was being born. He felt an intense sense of danger, and knew that he could not delay any longer. The shield fiercely slammed into his face. The huge force caused his vision to go black, and he lost consciousness on the spot. His body, which had lost control of itself, smashed heavily into the ground like a meteorite. It was as if a terrifying monster had suddenly appeared on the battlefield, causing all the beasts to fall silent in fear of its might. Tang Tian had no time to check. His mind was filled with the battle. Bang! A cloud of dust rose up from the ground. Su Yi's surroundings were filled with spiderweb cracks. So that asshole is from Gemini constellation. Little fool. William. This is Red Devil William's devil fire. They seeped out from every muscle in his body, every drop of blood, every piece of bone, following his limbs, converging towards his heart. Su Yi's movement was extremely sudden, and the saints around him were completely unable to react. Not good. Bang. Su Yi had seen many enemies of the temple, but none of them caused him to feel such deep fear like Tang Tian. This fellow will definitely become the honorable martial alliance and the temple's mortal enemy. This thought that came out of nowhere lit up his mind like a lightning bolt. Bang! A muffled sound came out. Su Yi's body trembled. The shattered auras fell like rain, as though they were blown by the wind, like a dream, reflecting the shock on his face. Everyone. The energy drifting in the air suddenly calmed down. The turbulent energy flow from the battle had disappeared without a trace, and the entire place became quiet. Tang Tian's heart was half corroded by the azure energy, while the other half was corroded by the scarlet-red energy. Gradually, Tang Tian's heart became half blue and half red. The blue half became even more sparkling and translucent, while the red half became even more red like blood. This fellow, what exactly is his background? My lover, my companion, my world. Such an ordinary young man was currently a tyrant. In charge of Ursa Major constellation, even the Honorable Martial Alliance feared him. Such an astonishing speed of growth, even Su Yi, who had been viewed as a genius since young, had to admit that he was inferior. Su Yi felt that he was going crazy. The spirit-devouring blood group's spirit-devouring flame, William's devil fire, every single power that Tang Tian was using, caused him to be filled with fear. Any name was a taboo in the temple. This fellow. Su Yi could not see the opponent's figure clearly, but he could sense an extremely dangerous aura forming in the center of the storm. The golden eyes had become scarlet red like fire. Victory! I want victory! This judgment caused his heart to immediately become blazing hot. The originally quiet energy suddenly became extremely lively. So fast. Countless azure threads and countless scarlet threads quickly converged towards Tang Tian's heart. The blood meridian's seal lock has been opened. Yaya. Amidst the exclamations, the light blade easily broke through the storm and fiercely slashed towards Tang Tian. Tang Tian looked at Su Yi. He saw the bewilderment in Su Yi's eyes and smiled at Su Yi. Su Yi's heart palpitated. He suddenly realized it was an extremely good opportunity. Previously, he had always treated the mission as an ordinary mission, but at that moment he suddenly realized maybe he could reap some rewards from the mission. No. He was still in the middle of a battle. Gemini constellation was not a problem to think about now. His body was undergoing an astonishing change. The blood-red color in Tang Tian's eyes became denser. It was a patch of scarlet red. He held onto the silver-lined heavy shield, his body slightly lowered, like a bloodthirsty wild beast. How is that possible? That flame is the devil flame. His power was continuously increasing. The devil flame actually permeated into every strand of blood and flesh in his body. My willpower, my ambition, my oath. Su Yi became even more hesitant to be able to stir up such a large area of energy. No matter how he looked at it, it was not normal. But for the free energy in the air to be used by a saint in battle, it was not a simple matter. It was definitely not something a bronze saint could achieve. Su Yi felt that his own thoughts were a joke. Energy was not a wild beast. It did not have life. How is that possible? The attentive Su Yi quickly noticed a detail. Tang Tian's golden pupils did not seem to have any focus. All of them are reasons for me to fight. All of them are reasons for me not to give up. I am that greedy. I am that hopeless. Wait a minute. Gemini furnace. Gemini constellation. Tang Tian subconsciously clenched his fists. The Gemini furnace that was forming in his body, the azure blue energy furnace, was extremely quiet, while the red half, that was the blood furnace, was extremely active. All the blood in his body was pouring into the blood furnace, and was continuously being strengthened inside the blood furnace, and then dispersed into his body. This fellow's body definitely has a secret. His eyes stared intently at Tang Tian. He had seen Tang Tian's strange actions and the form spirit's movements, although he did not believe that Tang Tian could play any tricks, but the sudden change made him even more cautious. Tang Tian could differentiate the difference. The energy that was gushing into his body was a thin azure blue flow, but the energy that was gushing out from his flesh and blood was scarlet red like blood. The entire sky had darkened, and unknowingly, dark clouds covered the sky. The endless dark clouds were as black as ink and hung low like lead. Tang Tian slowly opened his eyes. Tang Tian, who was in the storm, had a calm expression. His zero-energy body was unable to block the energy that was gushing in. The energy that was gushing in frantically followed his body and converged towards his heart. Unless Tang Tian's body was still hiding something? Su Yi immediately became alert, but suddenly in his vision he lost sight of Tang Tian. Tang Tian was startled. He had all sorts of guesses about the blood meridians in his body, but he had never linked his blood meridians with Gemini constellation. To him, it was an extremely foreign constellation. Tang Tian had already completely thrown all the questions to the back of his mind. His eyes were red, like an enraged bull. He frantically pounced on every enemy he could see. The energy that filled the sky transformed into thin streams and pounced towards Tang Tian. The air was filled with thin streams of energy, like the ripples created by the tip of a sword cutting across the water surface. Tang Tian could clearly feel that the power of his body was increasing bit by bit, and he could feel the extent of the increase. The position where Tang Tian stood was like the center of the storm. The energy that filled the sky frantically surged into his body. At the same time, he appeared at the edge of the storm. The light aura around his body was as dazzling as the sun. He raised his left palm and fiercely chopped down. Although Little Fool was already asleep in the energy furnace and could not use blink, but Tang Tian's current speed was actually not much slower than blink. The whistling stopped, the roars subsided, the white field of vision slowly returned to normal. He saw Su Yi, who was not far away, with a broken arm. The blood meridians that had been unlocked in his body were like the deep sea, or like the endless void. The power was flowing silently. Every ripple caused his heart to palpitate. Tang Tian softly said to himself. His mind was moved. Could it be? The Overlord execution previously, Tang Tian had to use all of his strength to barely block it. But Tang Tian was actually holding onto the shield with one hand. His body only swayed slightly and did not retreat a single step. The silver-lined heavy shield did not move an inch. Tang Tian's background was truly not simple. Tang Tian did not sense anything, seeing the surging blade aura, as though it was about to touch Tang Tian's forehead. Suddenly, a silver shield appeared in front of the blade aura. Su Yi tried his best to recall the description of the golden eyes. He had a vague impression of it, as though he had seen it somewhere before, but he could not recall it. But, although he could not recall the origin of the golden eyes, but he could still make a rough judgment. Everyone present were saints, and they were extremely sensitive to the changes in energy, to the changes in chi dynamics. The sudden silence of the world caused the experienced saints to be bewildered. Chapter 541. Thinking of Zheng Yu and the others who were injured, he quickly said, "Let's go down and take a look." Temple's 15 saints were completely wiped out. The 4 gold-rank armies of the Honorable Martial Alliance, 2 were wiped out, 1 was defeated, and 1 was heavily injured. But, now that the Ursa Major constellation had opened up the Treasure City, they had already officially stepped into the ranks of the top aristocratic families. Exclamations of shock could be heard, one after another. Meng Ta and the rest were saints after all, and were more knowledgeable than ordinary martial artists. Among them, there were many who had been to the 12 ecliptic palaces and seen those treasure cities. That also meant the amount of energy a saint possessed was limited, and when the spirit domain continued to grow stronger, it would become the saint's shackles. They realized their true power was not enough to support the squandering of spirit techniques. Tang Tian's body went limp. His feet were in the air, and his body fell down. No one doubted Ursa Major Constellation's position as the new powerhouse, and there were already people calling Ursa Major Constellation the 13th Ecliptic Palace. Previously, although the Ursa Major Constellation was hailed as a tyrant by everyone, but compared to a true tyrant of the Ecliptic Palaces, there was still a huge gap. The entire Heavens Road was shocked by the might of Ursa Major Constellation. Everyone was dumbfounded. They dared to guarantee that in their entire lives, there had never been a battle that was as deeply imprinted in their minds as the one just now. And the effect of glimmer was similar to that of a soul furnace. This was the true reason why it could become the #1 bronze spirit technique of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Just that, it was unable to completely convert the true power into new energy like the spirit furnace, but to burn the true power in a special way, thus increasing the power of the true power. Meng Ta and the rest were shocked, thinking that it was the enemy's last attack. The blue light that was as fast as lightning drew a beautiful arc in the air, and once again brought Tang Tian back to them. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Look over there!" Suddenly, Tang Tian sensed an unusual fluctuation of astral power. He looked up abruptly. Such a powerful combat power had already exceeded the limits of their imagination. In their eyes, Tang Tian was already an existence akin to a god of war. Everyone descended to the ground. At this moment, the sky rumbled, and countless streams of light flashed across the sky like lightning. Everyone was stunned by this sudden turn of events. No one had ever seen such a phenomenon before. For glimmer to be able to become the Honorable Martial Alliance's strongest bronze spirit technique, it naturally had its own unique points. Any saint, the true power contained in his body, was limited. The growth of the spirit domain was just to accommodate laws, and regardless of what laws it was, they all used true power, which was also energy. The silver-lined heavy shield, with its astonishing defensive power, was the best weapon in Tang Tian's hands. It was powerful and heavy, like a large fly swatter. After subduing Big Dipper, swallowing Sexton's constellation, Ursa Major Constellation opened the treasure city. Thousand Hands Devil Monarch's last wish. The stone penetrated Yaya's body like jelly. Zheng Yu and the rest had long been caught by the Light Blade army below, although they were injured and unconscious, but their lives were not in danger. This made Tang Tian heave a sigh of relief. After returning with Ding Man around, there would definitely be no problems. This is my battle. The fist-sized straight pipe led deep into the ground. Tang Tian, whose bloodline had been completely awakened, had become extremely terrifying. The blood in his body continued to flow into the blood furnace, evolving inside the blood furnace, and then flowed into every other part of his body. The zero-energy body that was initially thought to be unable to improve continued to evolve. Just that on Yaya's back, there was an additional pair of blue light wings, and on its forehead, a pile of blue stones was revealed. The stones that entered Yaya's body suddenly produced a powerful suction force, causing the glimmer that was wreaking havoc in Yaya's body to be continuously absorbed by the stones. Gradually, the blue light aura from the stones became brighter, and the blue light aura started to permeate into Yaya's body. Holding on to the silver-lined heavy shield, he appeared like a ghost behind the temple saints who were escaping in panic. The silver-lined heavy shield carried a terrifying power, causing the energy barriers to shatter like fragile glass. Tang Tian's eyes were red, he gasped for breath with all his might, the veins on his neck were popping out, as far as his eyes could see, all the high and mighty enemies had all fallen to his feet. The flames in his chest became even more intense, causing his entire body to be boiling hot. Countless light auras surged out, forming an extremely congealed gigantic light barrier, protecting the entire ancient cold city. Tang Tian knew that meant that Big Dipper's battle had ended. The figures in the sky continued to fall, smashing into the ground like cannonballs. Oh my God, ancient cold city has become a treasure city. Yeah. And the impressive battle results against the Honorable Martial Alliance had caused the entire Heavens Road to be speechless. Even in the 12 ecliptic palaces, other than Leo constellation, No other constellation dared to say that they would have such a glorious battle result against the honorable martial alliance. Glimmer could be used on any type of martial technique or spirit technique, and that was one of its strong points. Regardless of whether it was Yi Zhaoji's sword technique or Su Yi's blade technique, every move they made was extremely powerful. The true power that was combusted would form a light needle effect, and its destructive power towards the spirit and body was even more astonishing. Everyone immediately looked over. In the distant ancient cold city, a dazzling light aura shone down and entered ancient cold city. In the blink of an eye, there were no more saints from the temple floating in the sky, only Tang Tian holding onto the silver-lined heavy shield, gasping for breath. His eyes were red, his neck straightened, and he looked around fiercely. Tang Tian, who was unable to control himself, raised his sinister face. Facing the sky, he roared out in anger. The glimmer in Yaya's body surged endlessly. Suddenly, the stone embedded in Yaya's but lit up with a faint blue light aura. The light aura that lit up was like a needle. It was glimmer, and it was destroying Yaya's body. Yaya had not understood the situation, but with the addition of the flashy blue light wings, Yaya was extremely happy. It proudly flew back in front of everyone, its little head looking around, trying to find Little Fool's figure. Such a flashy thing. Of course he had to let Little Fool admire it. Under the silver-lined heavy shield, the shattered auras rained down. Just at that moment, Bell brought him the latest battle report. Bing led the mechanical army across half of Ursa Major constellation, suddenly appearing behind the Raging Inferno army. The Raging Inferno army had launched a surprise attack and heavily injured the Raging Inferno army. Ursa Major constellation, who had opened the treasure city, had become even harder to attack, unless they invested more saints. And that meant that the Honorable Martial Alliance needed to fight against 2 Ecliptic Palaces grade constellations, and Temple would definitely not agree to it. Bang bang bang. Although they had already relied on Ursa Major constellation, but they did not expect that Ursa Major constellation's strength was actually so strong. Following the saints' deeper understanding of energy, they realized that under a few specific laws, through collisions and annihilation, energy would produce a new type of energy, and the strength of this new type of energy would increase exponentially. That was the fundamental difference between Silver Saints and Bronze Saints, and that was the spirit furnace that only Silver Saints had. The true power in a Silver Saint's body would surge into the spirit furnace, transforming into new energy inside the spirit furnace, and would be able to erupt with power that was multiplied exponentially. Yishou Exin Mo Lei and the rest of the Light Blade army were completely stunned by the battle in the sky, and looked at Tang Tian with eyes filled with deep reverence. Other than the few who died under the spirit-devouring flame, the rest had all died under the hands of Tang Tian's people, including the famous Su. The battle on the ground had already become one-sided. The huge battlefield was dead silent, and only Tang Tian's panting could be heard. Even the Honorable Martial Alliance had stopped all operations against Ursa Major constellation. There were still a few days left until the agreed time with Chie, and Tang Tian was prepared to settle another matter. The other benefit of opening the treasure city was that it would be more convenient to travel between cities. Tang Tian could open star doors between cities, but it would consume star power. Compared to the convenience of the star doors, the consumption of star power was something that Tang Tian did not care about. The star doors between the various treasure cities caused the market of Ursa Major constellation to become extremely prosperous. Everyone's face was filled with joy. Only the 12 Ecliptic Palaces had the qualifications to form treasure cities, and that required the concentration of star power to exceed a certain threshold. Treasure cities were viewed as the foundation of top-notch tyrants, because treasure cities had outstanding defensive capabilities, and every treasure city was like a node, where they used the star power of the entire constellation. For example, some of the star power in uninhabited regions could be extracted and concentrated in the various treasure cities, thus allowing the star power of the treasure cities to become even denser and more beneficial to the training of martial artists. Temple saints were not blood meridian saints, although their bodies were much stronger than ordinary martial artists, but in the face of such astonishing power, they were unable to resist at all. It was actually Yaya. Yaya, who was in dreamland, was smacking his lips, as though he was eating something delicious, his chubby face revealing a look of satisfaction. The quietly sleeping Yaya suddenly released two thin blue auras on his back. Following that, the two blue auras revealed two small meat sprouts, and the small meat sprouts grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. The underground world was quiet and peaceful. Just at that moment, an extremely fast blue light suddenly shot out from the ground like lightning, bringing along Tang Tian and flying high into the sky. It was as though something inside the ancient cold city was responding, rumbling and trembling. The tall ice walls were melting at a speed visible to the naked eye, and a dazzling halo enveloped the entire ancient cold city. This is my victory! The blood in Tang Tian's eyes gradually receded, returning back to normal. He also retreated from the battle, thinking about how dangerous it was. He almost lost face. With his current body, he would definitely not die if he fell from the sky, and could even smash a large hole in the ground, but that would be a huge embarrassment. Tang Tian's speed became faster and faster, and his power became even more terrifying. The young man's blazing fighting intent and lofty sentiments, the young man's steel-like willpower and determination, all followed the angry roar and surged endlessly in the clouds. A small body, curled up into a ball, Yaya's body flickered, as though it was breathing. Yaya's small body was like a glowing meatball. The small flag on its back was broken. Little Fool, who was sleeping inside the energy furnace, suddenly revealed an undetectable smile. New aristocratic family. The Treasure City's energy barrier could mobilize a corresponding amount of star power, and its defense was much stronger than the energy barrier constructed by ordinary cities. Treasure City. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.